Picture the moment when humanity first saw its home from space. The thin blue line of atmosphere, the swirling white clouds, the brown and green patches of continents floating in an endless ocean of black. For the first time in our species' history, we could see Earth as it truly was, a single, fragile sphere suspended in the cosmic void. Decades later, that godlike perspective became commonplace. Google Maps transformed our understanding of geography, placing satellite imagery at our fingertips. With a few clicks, we could soar above mountain ranges, dive into city streets, or explore remote islands in the Pacific. The entire planet seemed laid bare before us, every corner cataloged and searchable. Yet something peculiar emerged from this digital omniscience. As millions of users explored the virtual globe, they began to notice gaps, patches of blur, pixelated squares where clarity should have existed, regions that seemed deliberately obscured, as if someone had drawn curtains across portions of the Earth. These digital voids sparked an unusual curiosity. In an age where information flows freely, where satellite technology can read license plates from space, why would certain places remain hidden? The official explanations were straightforward: national security, privacy concerns, commercial interests. Military installations needed protection. Government facilities required discretion. But the human mind, evolved to detect patterns and anomalies, began to wonder about the spaces between explanations. Some of these blurred zones appeared in locations far from obvious military importance, remote wilderness areas, seemingly empty stretches of ocean, ancient landscapes where nothing of strategic value should exist. The more people looked, the more questions arose. If satellite technology could peer through cloud cover, if it could map the ocean floor and chart the movement of glaciers, what lay beneath those carefully placed pixels? Were these truly mundane security measures? Or did they conceal something more intriguing? Consider the psychological impact of hidden information. Throughout history, forbidden knowledge has possessed an almost magnetic pull. Maps from medieval times marked unknown territories with warnings. Here be dragons. Modern digital cartography had created its own dragons, invisible boundaries that separated the known from the unknowable. The Earth from space appeared complete, a sphere without secrets. But the closer one looked at its digital representation, the more apparent it became that vast portions remained deliberately invisible. These weren't accidents or technical glitches. They were conscious decisions to obscure, to hide, to keep certain places separate from the democratized geography that Google had given to the world. As night fell across continents, as city lights began to twinkle like stars reflected on water, somewhere in those blurred zones lay stories untold. Hidden cities that existed only in rumors, ancient settlements that predated recorded history, or perhaps nothing at all, empty spaces that had been classified simply because classification itself had become routine. The revolution in digital mapping had promised to eliminate mystery from geography. Instead, it had created new mysteries, modern enigmas that whispered of secret worlds existing parallel to our own. In the space between pixels, in the gaps between satellite passes, lay the possibility that Earth still held surprises for those brave enough to look beyond the boundaries of the visible. What truths might emerge if those digital veils were lifted? What landscapes, what structures, what evidence of forgotten civilizations might resolve into focus? The very act of hiding these places had transformed them into legends, modern myths born from the intersection of advanced technology and human curiosity. Meanwhile, as millions continued to navigate their daily lives using these incomplete maps, a smaller group of digital explorers began to catalog the inconsistencies, to document the anomalies, and to wonder what lay hidden in the spaces that Google Maps would never show them. The first blurred images appeared almost accidentally. Early satellite mapping programs, designed for navigation and commerce, occasionally encountered regions that government agencies preferred to keep private. The solution seemed simple enough: obscure sensitive locations with digital fog, pixelation, or complete omission. Area 51 in Nevada became the most famous example. The mysterious military installation, long the subject of speculation about experimental aircraft and extraterrestrial research, appeared on Google Earth as a carefully blurred rectangle in the desert. The censorship only intensified public fascination, transforming a remote airbase into a global symbol of government secrecy. But Area 51 represented just the tip of a vast iceberg of digital censorship. Across the globe, hundreds of locations remained hidden beneath layers of pixelated distortion. Nuclear facilities in France appeared as geometric smudges. Submarine bases in Russia vanished into digital static. Research stations in Antarctica existed only as white voids against the snow. The logic behind such censorship seemed straightforward. Modern warfare increasingly relied on precision targeting. Detailed satellite imagery could provide hostile forces with strategic advantages. Protecting critical infrastructure made perfect sense in an interconnected world where information could travel instantly across continents. Yet patterns emerged that defied simple military explanations. Why would a remote weather station in Siberia require the same level of digital protection as a nuclear submarine facility? Why would ancient archaeological sites in the Middle East disappear from view with the same thoroughness as modern weapons installations? Some observers noted curious inconsistencies in the application of censorship. Military bases in certain countries remained clearly visible, while similar facilities elsewhere vanished beneath digital camouflage. The selective nature of these omissions suggested that factors beyond pure security concerns influenced what the public could see. Commercial satellites operated by private companies occasionally captured imagery of supposedly secret locations before government censors could intervene. These brief glimpses, lasting only hours or days before removal, revealed installations that appeared far more extensive than official acknowledgments suggested. Underground complexes sprawled beneath desert floors. Tunnel networks connected facilities across vast distances. The psychological impact of selective visibility became apparent in online communities dedicated to finding hidden locations. Amateur cartographers spent countless hours comparing historical imagery, noting when familiar landmarks suddenly disappeared or when new structures emerged in previously empty terrain. Their discoveries painted a picture of a world where the visible and invisible existed in careful balance. Historical precedent existed for such geographical manipulation. During World War II, governments routinely altered maps to confuse potential invaders. False cities appeared on official documents. Real locations shifted coordinates. The practice of cartographic deception had ancient roots, but digital technology had made it both more sophisticated and more noticeable. Consider the broader implications of living with incomplete geographical information. Navigation systems guided billions of people daily, using maps that contained deliberate gaps and distortions. The very foundation of modern travel relied on a curated version of reality, one where certain places simply did not exist in digital form. The question arose whether such censorship served its intended purpose. In an age of commercial satellite imagery, drone technology, and crowdsourced mapping, could any location truly remain hidden? Or had digital censorship become a symbolic gesture, a way of maintaining the illusion of control over information that had already become freely available through alternative sources? Some of the most intriguing censored locations appeared to serve no obvious military or commercial purpose. Remote islands in the Pacific, ancient ruins in South America, mountain valleys in Central Asia where no strategic installations should exist. These enigmatic omissions suggested that the criteria for hiding locations extended beyond conventional security concerns. As the catalog of hidden places grew, a disturbing possibility emerged. What if some locations had been removed not to protect contemporary secrets, but to conceal historical truths? What if certain landscapes held evidence that contradicted established narratives about human civilization, technological development, or the natural history of our planet? The digital veil that obscured these locations from public view also prevented independent verification of their contents. Without access to high-resolution imagery, researchers could only speculate about what lay beneath the pixelated blur. The act of hiding had created a void where facts could be replaced by theories, where absence of evidence became evidence of conspiracy. Centuries earlier, cartographers had filled unknown territories with illustrations of sea monsters and mythical beasts, honest acknowledgments of the limits of their knowledge. Modern digital censorship offered no such transparency, creating blank spaces that invited endless speculation about the wonders or horrors they might contain. Sandy Island existed on maps for over a century. Located in the Coral Sea between Australia and New Caledonia, it appeared on nautical charts, weather maps, and early digital atlases. Sailors planned routes around it. Meteorologists tracked weather patterns near it. The island seemed as real as any other piece of land surrounded by Pacific waters. Then, in November 2012, an Australian research vessel sailed to Sandy Island's coordinates and found nothing but empty ocean. The island that had existed in cartographic reality for generations simply was not there. Sonar readings detected no shallow water, no submerged landmass, no evidence that solid ground had ever existed at that location. The discovery sparked a fascinating investigation into how non-existent geography could persist across multiple mapping systems. Sandy Island's phantom presence traced back to a whaling ship's report from 1876, an observation that had been copied from chart to chart without independent verification. For 136 years, mapmakers had perpetuated an error that satellite technology finally exposed. But Sandy Island represented more than cartographic carelessness. It revealed how easily accepted reality could diverge from physical truth. If an entire island could exist in maps without existing in the ocean, what other geographical features might be similarly misrepresented? The case opened questions about the reliability of historical cartography and the assumptions underlying modern mapping systems. The phenomenon of phantom islands extended far beyond the Coral Sea. Historical records documented dozens of islands that appeared, disappeared, and sometimes reappeared on maps across centuries. Frisland supposedly existed between Iceland and Greenland. The Island of Demons allegedly lurked off the coast of Newfoundland. Buss Island was reportedly discovered in 1578 near Greenland, appearing on maps until the 19th century, despite numerous failed attempts to relocate it. Some phantom islands had prosaic explanations. Icebergs could be mistaken for land by early explorers. Atmospheric mirages created illusions of distant coastlines. Cloud formations might appear solid from a distance. Navigation errors in the Age of Dead Reckoning could place real islands in wrong locations, creating duplicate entries on charts. Yet other cases defied simple explanation. The Aurora Islands, first reported by Spanish explorers in 1762, were supposedly rediscovered multiple times by different expeditions. Detailed descriptions included specific coordinates, topographical features, and wildlife observations. British naval surveys in the 19th century mounted systematic searches, but found only empty ocean where the Aurora Islands should have existed. Modern satellite imagery promised to resolve such mysteries definitively. Orbital surveillance could map every square kilometer of Earth's surface with unprecedented accuracy. Phantom islands should become impossible in an age where satellites photograph the planet continuously from multiple angles. Instead, new mysteries emerged from the comprehensive satellite record. Comparison of images taken years apart revealed islands that appeared to change size, shape, or position between observations. Some variations could be attributed to tidal effects, seasonal vegetation changes, or photographic angles. Others remained puzzling. Small islands in remote regions proved particularly susceptible to cartographic inconsistencies. An atoll might appear clearly in one satellite pass and seem absent from the next. Weather patterns could obscure features temporarily, but some disappearances lasted for months or years before the islands reappeared with slightly different characteristics. The psychological impact of discovering phantom geography extended beyond academic curiosity. If maps could not be trusted to accurately represent basic geographical features, what confidence could people place in the digital representations they used for navigation, research, or exploration? The Sandy Island incident demonstrated that even sophisticated mapping systems could perpetuate fundamental errors. Consider the implications for historical research. If phantom islands could persist on maps for over a century, what other cartographic errors might have influenced historical events? Explorers might have wasted months searching for non-existent lands. Trade routes might have been planned around imaginary obstacles. Military strategies could have been based on geographical features that never existed. The phenomenon raised deeper questions about the nature of geographical reality itself. In an increasingly digital world, did a place exist if it appeared on maps but not in physical space? Sandy Island had influenced weather models, shipping routes, and scientific research despite being entirely fictional. Its cartographic reality had generated real-world consequences. Some researchers speculated about intentional geographical manipulation. Could phantom islands serve as markers for classified locations? Might some disappearing islands be early warning systems, designed to detect unauthorized surveillance or exploration? The boundary between accidental error and deliberate deception became increasingly difficult to discern. The mystery deepened when considering islands that appeared on satellite imagery, but not on official maps. These reverse phantoms, real places that cartographers seemed reluctant to acknowledge, suggested that the relationship between physical and digital geography involved more complex factors than simple accuracy or error. As digital mapping systems evolved toward real-time updating and crowdsourced verification, the era of phantom islands seemed to be ending. Yet the legacy of cartographic uncertainty lingered, a reminder that the maps we trusted to represent reality were themselves human constructions, subject to the same limitations and biases that had always shaped our understanding of the world around us. Somewhere in the vast expanses of ocean, other islands might be waiting to vanish or reappear, to challenge our assumptions about what exists and what remains hidden beneath the surface of accepted geographical knowledge. The jungle consumed everything. For centuries, thick canopies of green had reclaimed the great cities of the Maya, transforming stone pyramids into tree-covered hills, turning elaborate plazas into forest clearings where howler monkeys called through humid air. What had once been the heartland of a sophisticated civilization became impenetrable wilderness, hiding architectural marvels beneath layers of vegetation and time. Then came LiDAR technology, light detection and ranging systems, originally developed for atmospheric research, began to peer through forest canopies with unprecedented clarity. Laser pulses fired from aircraft could penetrate gaps between leaves, bounce off hidden surfaces below, and return with precise measurements of what lay concealed beneath the green veil. The results revolutionized archaeology. In Guatemala's Petén region, LiDAR surveys revealed an interconnected network of Maya settlements far more extensive than anyone had imagined. Over 60,000 structures emerged from digital analysis houses, palaces, defensive fortifications, and agricultural terraces that had supported a population in the millions. The jungle had hidden not just isolated monuments, but entire urban landscapes. Similar discoveries followed across the globe. In Cambodia, aerial laser scanning exposed the true extent of Angkor, revealing that the famous temple complex represented just a small portion of a vast medieval city that once covered over 1,000 square kilometers. Sophisticated water management systems, residential neighborhoods, and transportation networks materialized from beneath centuries of forest growth. The implications staggered researchers. If LiDAR could reveal such extensive hidden civilizations in well-studied regions like Guatemala and Cambodia, what might similar technology discover elsewhere? Vast areas of the Amazon rainforest, the Congo Basin, and Southeast Asian jungles remained largely unmapped by ground-based archaeology. Satellite imagery showed only endless green canopies, but beneath that verdant surface, entire chapters of human history might be waiting for rediscovery. The process of digital archaeological revelation followed predictable patterns. Initial LiDAR passes would detect geometric anomalies, straight lines and right angles that rarely occurred in natural landscapes. Computer analysis would filter vegetation signals from ground returns, gradually revealing artificial structures beneath the forest floor. Ground truthing expeditions would then hack through jungle growth to verify what the machines had seen from above. Yet access to LiDAR technology remained limited and expensive. Archaeological surveys required specialized aircraft, sophisticated sensors, and complex data processing systems. Most of the world's forest-covered regions had never been subjected to such detailed analysis. The few LiDAR surveys that had been conducted focused on areas where historical evidence already suggested the presence of ancient settlements. This selective application of advanced surveying technology raised intriguing questions. If comprehensive LiDAR mapping could reveal the true extent of Maya and Khmer civilizations, what discoveries might await in regions where no historical records suggested human presence? Remote forests in South America, Africa, and Asia might conceal archaeological treasures that conventional surface surveys could never detect. The limitations of satellite-based mapping became apparent when comparing optical imagery with LiDAR results. Even high-resolution satellite photos showed no trace of the vast Maya settlements that laser scanning had revealed. The jungle canopy provided complete camouflage, hiding architectural features that covered thousands of square kilometers. If such extensive ruins could remain invisible to conventional aerial photography, how many other hidden cities might exist beneath Earth's remaining forests? Commercial satellite imagery, including the data used by Google Earth and similar mapping platforms, relied primarily on optical sensors that could not penetrate forest canopies. The hidden cities revealed by LiDAR existed in a parallel geographical reality present in the landscape, but absent from the digital maps that billions of people used to understand their planet. Consider the historical implications of these hidden urban landscapes. The Maya civilization, long thought to have consisted of scattered city-states supporting relatively small populations, now appeared to have sustained complex societies with millions of inhabitants. Road networks, agricultural systems, and defensive installations suggested levels of political organization and technological sophistication that challenged established historical narratives. The discovery process itself revealed the limitations of human perception when confronting vast scales of concealment. Archaeologists had walked past enormous pyramids disguised as forested hills. Researchers had studied Maya culture for over a century without recognizing the true extent of their urban achievements. The jungle had hidden entire civilizations in plain sight, camouflaged by nothing more than time and vegetation. The psychological impact of these revelations extended beyond academic archaeology. If major civilizations could remain hidden beneath forest canopies well into the 21st century, what other aspects of human history might be similarly concealed? The planet that seemed thoroughly explored and documented clearly still held surprises for those with the tools to look beyond surface appearances. Speculation naturally turned to other forested regions where LiDAR surveys had not yet been conducted. The Amazon rainforest, covering over 5.5 million square kilometers, had been surveyed in only tiny fragments. Vast areas of Central Africa, Southeast Asia, and even temperate forests in North America and Europe might conceal archaeological features that conventional mapping could never detect. The technology that revealed these hidden cities also highlighted what remained concealed. For every forest where LiDAR had been deployed, dozens of similar regions awaited investigation. The green blanket that covered much of the Earth's land surface had been transformed from an obstacle to archaeological research into a protective shroud that might preserve countless ancient settlements until the day when laser light could finally pierce through leaves and reveal the secrets hidden below. The satellite zoomed smoothly over familiar terrain. Cities resolved into street-level detail. Parking lots became clearly defined rectangles where individual cars cast tiny shadows. Swimming pools appeared as blue dots in suburban backyards. Then, without warning, the image degraded into pixelated blocks, as if someone had thrown a digital blanket over a portion of the landscape. These zones of enforced low resolution scattered across Google Earth like digital blind spots. Some covered obvious targets, military installations, government facilities, nuclear power plants. Others appeared in locations that defied simple explanation: remote wilderness areas in Siberia, seemingly empty patches of Australian outback, coordinates in the Arctic where nothing should require protection from satellite scrutiny. The Kapustin Yar launch facility in Russia exemplified the phenomenon. Once clearly visible in satellite imagery, the installation gradually disappeared behind increasingly aggressive pixelation. By the 2010s, the entire complex existed only as a geometric blur, despite being publicly acknowledged as a space research facility. The censorship extended far beyond the launch pads themselves, obscuring vast areas of surrounding countryside where no obvious secrets should exist. Similar patterns emerged across multiple countries. The Guantanamo Bay detention facility showed clear detail in some areas, while remaining heavily blurred in others, creating a patchwork of visible and hidden zones within the same installation. The inconsistency suggested that censorship decisions involved complex criteria beyond simple security concerns. North Korea presented the most systematic example of geographical censorship. Vast regions of the country appeared as low-resolution smudges on Google Earth, making detailed geographical analysis impossible. The capital city of Pyongyang showed some clear imagery, but rural areas and suspected military installations vanished into digital fog. The entire northern border region with China existed only as a pixelated approximation. Yet the most intriguing censored locations appeared in places where no modern, military or industrial secrets should require protection. A remote valley in Afghanistan showed detailed terrain features, except for one specific area that remained consistently blurred across multiple years of satellite imagery. The hidden zone appeared to contain no structures, roads, or obvious installations, yet something about it warranted continued digital obscuration. The Arctic provided particularly puzzling examples. Polar research stations typically appeared clearly in satellite imagery, their prefabricated buildings and equipment laid out in stark contrast against ice and snow. But certain coordinates remained consistently blurred, despite being far from any acknowledged military or scientific installations. The empty ice sheets seemed to hide something that required the same level of censorship as sensitive weapons facilities. Commercial satellite companies faced pressure from multiple governments to obscure specific locations. The requests often came without detailed explanations, creating situations where private companies had to make decisions about what portions of Earth should remain hidden from public view. The criteria for censorship varied between countries, resulting in inconsistent application across similar types of facilities. Time-lapse analysis revealed the dynamic nature of digital censorship. Locations that had been clearly visible for years would suddenly disappear behind pixelated overlays. Others emerged from digital obscurity with no apparent change in their physical characteristics. The shifting patterns of visibility suggested that censorship decisions responded to changing political, military, or diplomatic considerations rather than fixed security requirements. Advanced users developed techniques for circumventing some forms of digital censorship. Historical imagery archives sometimes contained clear views of currently blurred locations. Different satellite platforms might show varying levels of detail for the same coordinates. Careful comparison of multiple sources could sometimes piece together information about hidden installations. The psychological impact of these digital blind spots extended beyond simple curiosity about military secrets. The knowledge that certain places had been deliberately removed from public view created an aura of mystery around otherwise unremarkable coordinates. Online communities formed around the shared goal of identifying and cataloging censored locations, turning digital cartography into a kind of treasure hunt. Consider the implications for historical research and geographical understanding. Future historians studying early 21st century satellite imagery would encounter systematic gaps in the visual record. Entire regions would be missing from the documentary evidence, creating blind spots in humanity's photographic record of its own planet during the satellite age. The phenomenon raised questions about the democratization of geographical information that digital mapping had promised to provide. While Google Earth and similar platforms offered unprecedented access to satellite imagery, they also demonstrated how easily such access could be selectively restricted. The same technology that had eliminated geography as a barrier to information had created new forms of geographical inequality. Some observers speculated about the possibility that certain censored locations concealed archaeological or geological features rather than contemporary installations. If governments could remove modern military facilities from public view, they might also obscure historical sites that contradicted established narratives or contained culturally sensitive information. The global nature of satellite censorship created a complex web of international agreements and bilateral arrangements. Countries regularly negotiated with mapping platforms and satellite imagery providers about what could be shown and what must remain hidden. The resulting patchwork of visible and invisible geography reflected diplomatic relationships as much as security concerns. As commercial satellite technology continued to advance and proliferate, the effectiveness of traditional censorship methods began to decline. Multiple satellite operators, crowdsourced imagery, and drone photography created redundant systems that made comprehensive censorship increasingly difficult to maintain. Yet the blurred zones persisted, monuments to humanity's instinct to keep secrets even in an age of increasing transparency. Aglow, New York, appeared on highway maps for decades. Travelers consulting Rand McNally Atlases would find the small community marked clearly along a rural road in the Catskill Mountains, positioned between more established towns with reassuring symbols indicating gas stations, restaurants, and lodging. The cartographic entry seemed perfectly ordinary, just another dot representing human settlement in the American countryside. But Aglow never existed. The fictional town began as a copyright trap, a cartographic phantom designed to catch unauthorized copying of map data. In the 1930s, mapmakers Otto Leinberg and Ernest Alpers invented the name combining the first letters of their first and last names and placed their imaginary community at a remote intersection in Delaware County. If the non-existent town appeared on a competitor's map, it would prove theft of their geographical data. For years, Aglow served its intended purpose as a hidden marker of map-making fraud. The fictitious community remained safely non-existent, visible only to cartographers who knew the secret of its artificial origin. Then something unexpected happened. A general store opened at the intersection where Aglow was supposed to be, taking its name from the maps that had marked the location for decades. Fiction had somehow generated reality. The Aglow General Store operated for several years, selling supplies to local residents and curious visitors who had noticed the map notation and decided to investigate. For a brief period, a real place existed at the coordinates of an imaginary town, bringing truth to decades of cartographic deception. The phantom settlement had willed itself into existence through the strange alchemy of repeated representation. Then the store closed. The building fell into disrepair. The intersection returned to its original state of rural anonymity, marked only by aging road signs and the ghosts of commercial ambition. Aglow had completed a full cycle from fiction to reality and back to fiction, leaving behind only traces of its brief existence as an actual place. Modern digital mapping platforms faced a decision about how to handle such cartographic curiosities. Should Aglo appear on contemporary maps? The town had genuinely existed for a period in the late 20th century, meeting the basic criteria for inclusion in geographical databases. Yet its origins lay in deliberate deception, and its current status remained ambiguous. Google Maps eventually included Aglo in its database, acknowledging both its fictional origins and its period of actual existence. The listing appeared with minimal detail, no street addresses, no business information, just coordinates marking a location where reality and representation had briefly intersected before diverging again. The Aglo phenomenon revealed the complex relationship between cartographic representation and geographical reality. Maps were supposed to document existing features of the landscape, but they also possessed the power to influence what came into existence. By marking a location consistently across multiple publications, cartographers had created conditions for their fiction to manifest in physical form. Similar cases appeared in mapping histories around the world. Phantom settlements, invented streets, and fictional geographical features had occasionally generated real counterparts through the cumulative influence of repeated cartographic representation. The boundary between description and creation proved more porous than traditional geography acknowledged. The story took on additional resonance in the digital age, where mapping platforms could update information instantaneously and global positioning systems relied on precise geographical databases. If a fictional location could persist across decades of printed maps and eventually generate real infrastructure, what might happen when such errors or deceptions entered the more dynamic realm of digital cartography? Consider the implications for communities that might exist in reality but disappear from digital representation. If Aglo could be created through cartographic repetition, could legitimate places be erased through digital omission? The same platforms that had documented the fictional town as brief existence also had the power to make real places effectively invisible to the connected world. The intersection where Aglo had briefly flourished remained marked by fading road signs and weathered foundations. Occasional visitors still arrived, guided by GPS systems or drawn by curiosity about the town's unusual history. They found empty countryside where maps suggested human settlement, a landscape that had returned to its pre-fictional state but retained traces of the strange interlude when imagination had briefly taken physical form. The village that vanished from maps had completed its journey from deliberate deception to accidental reality to contemporary mythology. Its coordinates remained fixed in geographical databases, but the meaning of those coordinates had shifted repeatedly across decades of changing representation. In the end, Aglo existed most fully in the stories told about it, a reminder that the relationship between maps and territory involved more complex negotiations between truth and fiction than simple documentation could capture. The ocean floor revealed itself reluctantly through sonar sweeps and satellite altimetry, painting pictures of underwater landscapes that had never known sunlight. Ridge systems stretched for thousands of miles like submarine mountain ranges. Abyssal plains spread in perfect darkness, interrupted by seamounts that rose from crushing depths toward distant surfaces. And scattered across this hidden topography, geometric patterns emerged that seemed too regular for natural processes to have created. In 2009, Google Ocean launched as an extension of Google Earth, allowing users to dive beneath the waves and explore bathymetric data collected by research vessels over decades of ocean mapping. The underwater imagery revealed a world of stunning complexity: underwater canyons that dwarfed the Grand Canyon, volcanic formations that had never been seen by human eyes, and ecosystems thriving in perpetual darkness around hydrothermal vents. But among the natural wonders, certain features sparked intense speculation. Off the coast of West Africa, sonar data showed what appeared to be a grid of straight lines covering an area larger than many countries. The Atlantic Ocean floor displayed geometric patterns that resembled city streets viewed from high altitude. Similar formations appeared in the Pacific, where parallel lines and rectangular shapes suggested artificial construction on impossible scales. Marine geologists quickly provided explanations for most underwater anomalies. Ship tracks from research vessels could create regular patterns in sonar data. Processing artifacts in bathymetric surveys might generate geometric distortions. The intersection of multiple survey grids could produce false impressions of organized structure where none existed. Technical limitations of underwater mapping technology explained away most of the mysterious formations. Yet some patterns resisted easy explanation. Near the Canary Islands, underwater features displayed architectural regularities that persisted across multiple independent surveys. The formations showed consistent orientations, regular spacing, and geometric relationships that seemed unlikely to result from natural geological processes or data processing errors. The structures appeared to represent something substantial beneath thousands of meters of water. The public imagination seized on these underwater mysteries with predictable enthusiasm. Online communities formed around the search for submerged cities, lost civilizations, and evidence of advanced prehistoric cultures. The Atlantis narrative, dormant for decades in popular consciousness, experienced a digital renaissance as amateur archaeologists pointed to underwater imagery as potential validation of Plato's ancient account. Scientific skepticism met popular speculation in forums and discussion groups where marine geology competed with alternative archaeology. Researchers patiently explained how underwater landslides, sediment flows, and tectonic activity could create patterns that appeared artificial to untrained observers. They described how data interpolation, survey methodologies, and visualization algorithms might generate false impressions of organized structure. But the explanations, however scientifically sound, could not entirely dispel the mystery. The ocean remained Earth's least explored frontier, with less than 5% of its depths thoroughly mapped and understood. Vast areas of seafloor had never been examined in detail. If advanced civilizations had existed during periods of lower sea level, their remains might indeed lie beneath kilometers of water and sediment. Consider the historical context of changing sea levels. During ice ages, ocean surfaces dropped by over 100 meters, exposing vast areas of continental shelf that were now permanently submerged. Coastlines extended hundreds of kilometers beyond their current positions. River deltas and coastal plains that might have supported large populations lay buried beneath post-glacial waters. Archaeological evidence from accessible underwater sites demonstrated that significant structures could indeed survive submersion. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument sparked decades of debate about whether its geometric features represented natural rock formations or artificial construction. In the Mediterranean, underwater surveys had revealed ancient harbors, building foundations, and even entire neighborhoods preserved beneath shallow waters. The challenge of underwater archaeology lay not in the impossibility of artificial structures surviving submersion, but in the difficulty of distinguishing genuine archaeological features from natural formations at great depths. Sonar data provided tantalizing hints, but lacked the resolution necessary for definitive identification. Direct exploration of deep ocean sites required expensive submersibles and sophisticated equipment that limited investigation to a tiny fraction of promising locations. The geometric patterns visible in Google Ocean represented a middle ground between complete ignorance and definitive knowledge. They provided enough detail to suggest organization and structure while remaining ambiguous, enough to support multiple interpretations. The underwater shadows revealed just enough to spark curiosity while concealing enough to sustain mystery. Remote sensing technology continued to improve, offering higher resolution bathymetric data and more sophisticated processing algorithms. Each advance in underwater mapping revealed new details of seafloor topography while simultaneously exposing the limitations of previous surveys. Features that had appeared clearly artificial in earlier data might resolve into natural formations under closer scrutiny, while new anomalies emerged from previously featureless regions. The ocean kept its secrets through sheer immensity and inaccessibility. Even if advanced underwater civilizations had left extensive remains on continental shelves, finding and documenting such evidence would require systematic exploration across millions of square kilometers of seafloor. The task exceeded current archaeological capabilities by orders of magnitude. As satellite altimetry and sonar technology continued to map the hidden topography beneath the waves, the underwater shadows persisted as reminders of how much remained unknown about Earth's submerged landscapes. Somewhere in the abyss, geometric patterns waited to reveal whether they represented the work of geological forces, data processing artifacts, or something more intriguing that had been watching the surface world from beneath kilometers of dark water. The Sahara stretched beyond the horizon like a sea of amber glass, its dunes shifting with winged patterns that had remained unchanged for millennia. From space, the desert appeared as a vast expanse of empty beauty, unmarked by human presence except for the thin line of the Nile cutting through its eastern edge. Yet scattered across the seemingly barren landscape, satellite imagery revealed anomalies that challenged assumptions about the desert's emptiness. Geometric patterns emerged from careful analysis of satellite data. Straight lines hundreds of kilometers long stretched across regions where no roads should exist. Circular formations appeared in areas far from any water source or human settlement. Most intriguingly, certain areas of the Sahara remained consistently obscured in satellite imagery, hidden behind the same digital blurring techniques used to conceal military installations in populated regions. The Richet structure in Mauritania exemplified the desert's capacity to conceal mysteries. Known as the Eye of the Sahara, the formation appeared as a massive bullseye pattern visible from space, with concentric rings extending across 48 kilometers of otherwise featureless terrain. Geological explanations described the structure as an eroded dome of sedimentary rock, but its perfect circularity and regular proportions had sparked alternative theories about artificial origins. Similar formations scattered across North Africa and the Middle East suggested that the world's deserts held more secrets than their empty appearance indicated. In Egypt's western desert, satellite imagery revealed the outlines of ancient settlements buried beneath sand dunes. Ground-penetrating radar detected extensive underground structures in regions where surface archaeology had found no evidence of human habitation. The challenge of desert archaeology lay in the sand's capacity to both preserve and conceal. Unlike tropical environments where organic materials decomposed rapidly, arid conditions could preserve artifacts and structures for thousands of years. But the same winds that created preserving dryness also buried evidence beneath constantly shifting dunes. Entire cities could vanish beneath the sand and reappear centuries later as wind patterns changed. Historical accounts described lost settlements that had thrived along ancient trade routes before being abandoned to the encroaching desert. The city of Tagaza, a major salt trading center in medieval Mali, disappeared so completely that its exact location remained uncertain despite extensive archaeological surveys. Similar lost cities throughout the Sahara existed primarily in historical records, their physical remains hidden beneath generations of accumulated sand. Modern satellite imagery offered the possibility of rediscovering such lost settlements through subtle variations in surface temperature, vegetation patterns, or soil composition. Buried structures might influence groundwater flow or create microclimates that affected plant growth. Thermal imaging could detect underground features that remained hidden from optical sensors. Yet certain regions of the Sahara remained off-limits to such analytical techniques. Areas of Algeria, Libya, and Chad appeared consistently blurred in satellite imagery despite being located far from obvious military or political sensitivities. The censorship extended across national boundaries, suggesting international agreements to conceal specific geographical features from public scrutiny. The reasons for desert censorship remained largely speculative. Some areas might conceal archaeological sites deemed culturally or politically sensitive. Others could hide evidence of prehistoric human activity that contradicted established timelines of civilization's development. The possibility also existed that certain desert regions contained geological features with strategic or commercial value that justified their removal from public view. Consider the implications of systematic concealment across such vast territories. The Sahara alone covered over 9 million square kilometers, an area larger than the continental United States. If even a small percentage of that landscape harbored significant archaeological or geological secrets, the hidden knowledge could reshape understanding of human history and Earth's natural processes. Bedouin oral traditions preserved stories of cities that appeared and disappeared with the shifting sands. These nomadic peoples, who had traversed the desert for generations, spoke of ancient settlements that became visible during certain seasons when wind patterns exposed buried ruins. Their accounts described architectural features, water systems, and artifacts that suggested sophisticated urban centers in regions now considered uninhabitably arid. The disconnect between historical accounts and contemporary archaeological evidence created a puzzle that satellite technology might help resolve. If oral traditions preserved accurate information about lost desert cities, systematic analysis of satellite imagery might identify promising locations for ground-based investigation. But such analysis required access to high-resolution data from the very regions most likely to be censored or obscured. Climate research revealed that the Sahara had experienced dramatic environmental changes over geological time scales. Periods of increased rainfall had transformed the desert into grassland, supporting large human populations. Evidence of this green Sahara appeared in rock art, fossil records, and geological formations that documented a very different environmental history from the current arid conditions. If the desert had supported extensive human settlements during water periods, their remains might lie preserved beneath the current sand cover. The combination of excellent preservation conditions and systematic concealment from satellite observation created ideal circumstances for maintaining archaeological secrets. Entire civilizations could remain hidden beneath the dunes, known only to a few researchers with access to restricted imagery and classified survey data. The Forbidden Deserts maintained their secrets through a combination of natural concealment and human intervention. Sand provided perfect camouflage for buried structures, while digital censorship prevented remote analysis of promising locations. Somewhere beneath the shifting dunes, evidence of lost cities, ancient technologies, or unprecedented archaeological discoveries waited for the day when both natural and artificial barriers to knowledge might finally be overcome. Ancient cosmologies envisioned Earth as a hollow sphere, its interior populated by unknown civilizations existing in perpetual twilight. Hindu traditions described vast underground realms called Patala, where serpent beings possessed wisdom and treasures beyond imagination. Norse mythology spoke of passages leading to subterranean worlds where different rules of physics applied. These stories, dismissed as primitive superstition, shared striking similarities across cultures that had no contact with each other. The scientific revolution should have ended such speculation permanently. Geology demonstrated that Earth's interior consisted of molten rock and metal under tremendous pressure. Seismology mapped the planet's internal structure through earthquake, waves that revealed solid and liquid layers, but no vast empty spaces. Physics proved that gravitational forces would make a hollow planet impossible to maintain in stable form. Yet the hollow Earth concept persisted into the modern era, transforming from mythological belief into speculative theory. In 1818, John Cleves Sines Jr. proposed that polar regions contained openings to interior worlds. arguing that all planets were naturally hollow with habitable inner surfaces. His ideas influenced American polar exploration and even received serious consideration from government officials who funded expeditions partly motivated by hollow Earth theories. The polar regions that Sims identified as potential entrances to inner worlds happened to coincide with some of the most systematically obscured areas in modern satellite imagery. Antarctic research stations appeared clearly in Google Earth, but vast areas of the polar interior remained blurred or showed suspiciously low resolution. Similar digital censorship affected Arctic regions where no obvious military installations should require protection from satellite observation. Admiral Richard Byrd's Antarctic expeditions of the 1920s and 1940s generated persistent rumors about discoveries that were never fully disclosed to the public. Byrd's diary entries, published decades after his death, contained references to encounters with unknown aircraft and meetings with representatives of advanced civilizations. While these accounts were widely regarded as fictional additions to legitimate expedition records, they contributed to ongoing speculation about polar secrets. The physics of polar exploration provided some basis for unusual phenomena that might fuel hollow Earth speculation. Compass anomalies. Near magnetic poles could create navigation problems that generated reports of entering different geographical regions. Aurora effects and atmospheric distortions might create visual illusions of openings or passages in ice formations. Radio communications could be disrupted in ways that suggested the presence of unknown electromagnetic phenomena. Modern Antarctic research revealed genuine mysteries beneath the ice. Lake Vostok, buried under 4 kilometers of ice, contained liquid water that had been isolated for millions of years. Drilling projects to reach such subglacial lakes were conducted under strict contamination protocols, partly because the isolated environments might contain unique ecosystems that had evolved independently from surface life. The discovery of extensive cave systems in other regions demonstrated that large underground voids could exist without requiring complete planetary hollowness. Mammoth Cave in Kentucky extended for over 400 mapped kilometers. Vietnam's Son Tra Cave contained chambers large enough to house 40-story buildings. If such extensive cave systems could exist in temperate regions, even larger subterranean spaces might exist in polar areas where geological surveys remained limited. Satellite-based gravity measurements revealed underground anomalies that suggested the presence of unknown voids or structures beneath polar ice. These gravitational variations could indicate ice caves, subglacial lakes, or geological formations not visible from surface observations. The data remained classified or restricted in many cases, preventing independent analysis of potentially significant findings. The systematic censorship of polar regions in satellite imagery created an information vacuum that speculation naturally filled. If governments felt compelled to obscure vast areas of Antarctica and the Arctic from public view, the hidden features must possess some form of strategic, scientific, or political significance. The absence of official explanations left room for theories ranging from military bases to archaeological discoveries to more exotic possibilities. Consider the psychological appeal of hollow Earth theories in an age of increasing surveillance and information overload. The concept offered the possibility that vast unknown spaces still existed on a planet that appeared to be completely mapped and monitored. Underground worlds represented the ultimate frontier, realms where different natural laws might apply and where human civilization might take radically different forms. Historical precedent existed for the discovery of previously unknown underground civilizations. Derinkuyu in Turkey revealed an ancient underground city that extended 18 levels deep and could house 20,000 people. Cappadocia contained hundreds of similar subterranean settlements carved from soft rock. If humans had created such extensive underground civilizations in historical times, more ambitious subterranean projects might exist in regions where surface conditions made underground development more advantageous. The Hollow Earth narrative found new expression in modern Antarctica, where international treaties, limited access, and research activities remained largely classified. The continent's extreme isolation and harsh conditions provided perfect circumstances for concealing unusual discoveries or activities. Scientific research stations offered cover for investigations that might extend far beyond their stated purposes. Modern technology theoretically possessed the capability to definitively resolve Hollow Earth speculation through comprehensive subsurface scanning. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic surveys, and gravitational measurements could map underground structures with unprecedented detail. Yet such comprehensive surveys of polar regions appeared to remain classified or restricted, maintaining the information gap that allowed speculation to persist. The myths of Hollow Earth survived in the digital age because they addressed fundamental questions about the limits of human knowledge and the possibility that Earth still harbored profound secrets. Somewhere beneath the ice, beyond the reach of satellite observation and public scrutiny, passages might indeed lead to realms where ancient wisdom and advanced civilizations waited in the timeless darkness, just as the old stories had always insisted. Highway 375 stretches across the Nevada desert like a ribbon of black asphalt laid against an endless canvas of sand and scrub brush. Officially designated the Extraterrestrial Highway, it connects the towns of Crystal Springs and Warm Springs through some of the most remote territory in the continental United States. The road serves legitimate purposes, connecting rural communities, providing access to mining operations, serving the occasional adventurous tourist seeking alien encounters near Area 51. But 23 miles south of the town of Alamo, something odd appears in satellite imagery. A paved road branches off from the highway, heading due east toward the mountains. The road shows clearly in Google Earth, its asphalt surface contrasting sharply with the surrounding desert terrain. It extends for approximately 8 miles before reaching what appears to be a small cluster of buildings nestled in a valley between low hills. Then the road simply stops. Not at the buildings, which remain visible and appear to be some form of research or communications facility, but at a point roughly half a mile before reaching any structures. The asphalt ends abruptly, giving way to unmarked desert floor. No signs indicate the road's purpose or ownership. No official designation appears on any maps. The pavement terminates as if its builders had simply run out of materials or motivation at that precise coordinate. Local residents in Alamo and Crystal Springs had conflicting memories about the road's construction. Some recalled seeing heavy equipment and construction crews working in the area during the 1990s. Others insisted the road had appeared gradually over several years without obvious construction activity. A few claimed it had always existed, but had only recently become visible in satellite imagery, though this seemed unlikely given the road's clearly modern construction. Attempts to drive the mysterious road produced varying accounts. Some visitors reported reaching the end of the pavement without incident, finding only desert beyond the terminus. Others described feeling disoriented as they approached the road's end, losing track of time or direction. A few insisted they had continued beyond the visible terminus, encountering structures or installations that did not appear in satellite imagery. The buildings visible near the road, as intended, destination showed no signs of current occupation in publicly available satellite images. The structures appeared to be standard prefabricated constructions of the type used for temporary research installations or communications facilities. No vehicles, equipment, or personnel were visible in the imagery, though the images might have been taken during periods when the facility was unoccupied. Government surveys and land ownership records provided no clear explanation for the road's existence. The Bureau of Land Management showed no permitted construction projects in the area. The Nevada Department of Transportation had no record of highway extensions or access roads at those coordinates. Private land ownership in the region was limited, and no known entities had publicly claimed responsibility for the road's construction. The phenomenon gained attention in online forums dedicated to unusual geographical features and unexplained satellite imagery. Digital explorers compiled historical satellite images showing the road's appearance over time, but different imaging platforms showed conflicting information about when construction had begun and ended. Some services showed the road appearing suddenly between image updates, while others suggested gradual construction over several years. Analysis of the road's construction quality revealed puzzling inconsistencies. The asphalt appeared to be of highway-grade quality, far exceeding what would be necessary for simple access to remote facilities. The road's width, surface preparation, and engineering suggested it had been designed to handle significant traffic loads. Yet its remote location and abrupt terminus made such construction standards seem wastefully excessive. Geological surveys of the area revealed nothing that would explain the road's route or destination. No mineral deposits, water sources, or strategic geographical features existed at the road's terminus. The terrain beyond the pavement consisted of typical Mojave Desert landscape, rocky hills, scattered vegetation, and occasional dry washes. Nothing in the physical environment suggested why anyone would invest in high-quality road construction to reach that particular location. The mystery deepened when considering the road's visibility in different satellite imagery platforms. While clearly shown in Google Earth, the same road appeared differently in other mapping services. Some showed the full extent of the pavement, others displayed only portions, and a few seemed to omit the road entirely, despite covering the same geographical coordinates with similar resolution imagery. Weather patterns and seasonal changes had no apparent effect on the road's visibility. Unlike some features that might be concealed by snow, vegetation, or atmospheric conditions, the Nevada desert provided consistent visibility across multiple years of satellite observation. The road's clear appearance in some image sets and partial or complete absence from others suggested deliberate modification of the imagery rather than natural variation in photographic conditions. Local folklore began to develop around the road that ended in nowhere. Stories circulated about travelers who had followed the pavement beyond its visible terminus, encountering facilities, personnel, or phenomena that left no trace in subsequent visits. The tales shared common elements: disorientation, lost time, and encounters with technology that seemed inconsistent with the remote desert location. The road remained accessible to the public, its terminus reachable by anyone willing to make the drive through empty desert landscape. Yet the purpose of its construction, the identity of its builders, and the explanation for its abrupt ending remained as mysterious as when it first appeared in satellite imagery. Somewhere in the Nevada desert, 8 miles of expensive asphalt led precisely nowhere, or perhaps to somewhere that preferred to remain invisible to conventional observation. Medieval mapmakers faced vast oceans of ignorance when they set stylus to parchment. Beyond the familiar coastlines of Europe and the Mediterranean, their knowledge dissolved into speculation and fear. Rather than leave these spaces blank, cartographers filled the unknown with imagination sea monsters writhing in empty waters, exotic kingdoms populated by mythical creatures, warnings in elaborate script declaring, "Here be dragons." These ancient maps revealed as much about their creators' minds as about geographical reality. The monsters and marvels that decorated unexplored territories served practical purposes, acknowledging the limits of certain knowledge while providing compelling reasons for those limits to remain unchallenged. Dragons kept merchants from dangerous waters. Mythical kingdoms justified the expense of royal exploration. The decorated margins of maps made ignorance itself a form of information. Modern digital cartography promised to eliminate such creative embellishments. Satellite technology could photograph every square meter of Earth's surface with unprecedented accuracy. GPS systems enabled precise positioning measurements. Computer processing could analyze vast datasets to produce maps of mathematical precision. The age of speculative geography seemed definitively ended by the triumph of empirical observation. The platform provided free access to satellite imagery covering the entire planet, democratizing geographical information that had once been available only to military and intelligence agencies. Billions of users could explore remote locations, verify travel routes, and satisfy curiosity about distant places. The technology seemed to fulfill dreams of complete geographical transparency. But transparency proved to be selectively applied. Government requests resulted in the blurring or omission of sensitive locations. Commercial agreements influenced which businesses appeared prominently in search results. Cultural sensitivities affected how disputed territories were labeled or colored. The map that appeared on any user's screen reflected countless decisions about what information should be visible and how that information should be presented. The algorithms that powered digital mapping platforms embedded subtle biases in their processing of geographical data. Search functions prioritized certain types of locations over others. Satellite imagery from different dates might be combined to create composite views that never existed at any single moment. Color enhancement, shadow removal, and contrast adjustment could make locations appear significantly different from their natural appearance. Consider the psychological impact of these edited representations. Unlike medieval maps that clearly marked the boundaries between known and unknown territory, modern digital platforms presented seamless global coverage that suggested complete knowledge. Users developed confidence in the accuracy and completeness of digital maps without being informed about the editorial processes that shaped what they were seeing. The democratization of mapping technology also enabled new forms of geographical manipulation. User-generated content allowed businesses to create false listings, individuals to submit misleading information, and malicious actors to introduce systematic errors into geographical databases. Crowdsourced corrections could improve accuracy, but also provided vectors for deliberate misinformation. International tensions revealed themselves in digital cartography through competing claims about territorial boundaries, place names, and historical narratives. The same location might appear differently to users in different countries, with borders shifting and labels changing based on the viewer's IP address. Digital maps became diplomatic documents that reflected current political relationships as much as geographical reality. The speed of digital updating created new categories of cartographic uncertainty. Real-time traffic information, weather overlays, and user-generated updates meant that maps could change continuously. Features that appeared in one viewing session might be absent from the next. The fluid nature of digital information challenged traditional concepts of geographical stability and permanence. Historical comparison revealed how contemporary editorial decisions might appear to future observers. Just as modern researchers could identify the biases and limitations in medieval cartography, future historians would likely recognize the selective vision embedded in early 21st century digital maps. The gaps, distortions, and omissions that seemed necessary or inevitable to contemporary mapmakers might appear arbitrary or revealing to scholars with access to different information sources. The metaphor of digital dragons took on new meaning in this context. Instead of placing obvious monsters in unknown territories, modern cartographers created invisible exclusion zones, algorithmic filters, and selective representation that served similar functions to medieval warnings about dangerous waters. The dragons had not disappeared. They had become invisible, built into the code that determined what could be seen and what would remain hidden. Professional cartographers working for major, Mapping platforms operated under constraints that resembled the political and religious pressures faced by their historical predecessors. Government security requirements, corporate commercial interests, and cultural sensitivities influenced their work in ways that were rarely made explicit to end users. The maps they produced represented negotiated compromises between accuracy, accessibility, and various forms of institutional authority. The tools available to digital cartographers enabled unprecedented precision in representing known features while also making it easier to conceal or distort information about sensitive locations. The same satellite technology that could resolve individual vehicles could be deliberately degraded to obscure entire installations. The computational power that enabled real-time global mapping could also implement sophisticated censorship protocols that operated seamlessly and invisibly. As mapping technology continued to evolve toward higher resolution, real-time updating, and augmented reality integration, the editorial decisions embedded in geographical representation became increasingly consequential. The digital cartographers of the early 21st century were creating the foundation for how future generations would understand and interact with geographical space, encoding their own limitations, biases, and institutional constraints into systems that might persist for decades or centuries. Somewhere in the code that powered modern mapping platforms, algorithms continued the ancient tradition of marking territories that should not be explored, territories where "Here be dragons" was written in digital invisibility rather than decorative script. Beneath the ancient city of Derinkuyu in Turkey, passages carved from soft volcanic rock descend 18 levels into the earth. The underground complex extends over 60 meters deep and once housed 20,000 people along with their livestock, food stores, and religious spaces. Narrow tunnels connect vast chambers where entire communities could live for months without surfacing. Ventilation shafts, water systems, and defensive choke points demonstrate engineering sophistication that rivals modern urban planning. Derinkuyu represents just one example of humanity's ancient relationship with subterranean space. Across Cappadocia, hundreds of similar underground cities were carved from the region's soft tufa rock. These were not simple shelters or storage areas, but complete urban environments designed to support large populations during extended periods of isolation. The scale and complexity of these buried cities challenged assumptions about the technological capabilities of ancient civilizations. Archaeological evidence suggested that underground construction had been a global phenomenon throughout human history. The catacombs beneath Rome extended for hundreds of kilometers, creating a shadow city of tunnels and chambers. Paris sat atop abandoned limestone quarries that had been converted into ossuaries, sewers, and during World War II, resistance hideouts. Medieval Europe was riddled with secret passages, hidden chambers, and escape tunnels that connected castles, monasteries, and fortified cities. Yet modern urban development seemed to have lost this subterranean perspective. Contemporary cities expanded horizontally and vertically, but rarely took full advantage of underground space except for utilities, transportation systems, and parking. The ancient impulse to create extensive underground networks appeared to have been abandoned in favor of surface-based architecture and infrastructure. This observation raised intriguing questions about what might exist beneath modern cities that remained unknown to most inhabitants. Urban centers had been built and rebuilt across centuries, with new construction often covering older foundations without removing them entirely. Subway excavations occasionally uncovered forgotten chambers, abandoned tunnels, or archaeological remains that suggested much more extensive underground development than official records indicated. London's underground geography extended far beyond the famous tube system. Victorian-era tunnels, wartime bunkers, ancient Roman foundations, and medieval crypts created a hidden city beneath the modern metropolis. Government bunkers from the Cold War era remained classified decades after construction. Private tunnels connected banks, government buildings, and wealthy residences through networks that appeared on no public maps. Similar patterns emerged in major cities worldwide. New York's underground included not just subway tunnels, but also steam distribution systems, abandoned pneumatic postal networks, speakeasies from the Prohibition era, and modern fiber-optic infrastructure. Paris maintained extensive catacombs, abandoned metro stations, and underground quarries that created a parallel city beneath the surface. Moscow's metro system was rumored to include secret lines and stations designed for government evacuation during emergencies. The challenge of mapping these urban underground networks lay partly in their complexity and partly in the security concerns they raised. Complete documentation of subterranean infrastructure could provide invaluable intelligence to hostile forces. Critical utilities, emergency facilities, and transportation choke points required protection from surveillance. The same security logic that obscured military installations in satellite imagery also kept urban underground systems largely invisible to public mapping platforms. Government continuity planning relied heavily on underground facilities that remained classified long after their construction. During the Cold War, vast bunker complexes were built beneath major cities to ensure the survival of essential government functions during nuclear conflict. These facilities, designed to operate independently for extended periods, represented underground cities in their own right, complete with power generation, water treatment, communication systems, and living quarters for thousands of personnel. The scale of such projects suggested that underground construction capabilities existed that far exceeded what appeared in public infrastructure projects. If governments could build secret cities beneath the earth for emergency purposes, similar facilities might exist for other classified activities. The same tunneling technology used for legitimate purposes could be applied to create hidden networks that served undisclosed functions. Commercial underground development remained limited compared to its theoretical potential. Deep basements, underground shopping centers, and subterranean parking represented relatively modest use of available space. Yet engineering studies demonstrated that much more extensive underground development was technically feasible. Cities could theoretically expand downward as extensively as they had grown upward, creating multi-level underground environments that rivaled surface development. The absence of comprehensive underground development in most cities suggested that factors beyond technical feasibility influenced construction decisions. Economic considerations, regulatory constraints, and social preferences all favored surface development over subterranean alternatives. But these same factors might not apply to projects funded by unlimited budgets and unrestricted by normal regulatory oversight. Consider the implications of systematic underground development that remained hidden from public awareness. If ancient civilizations could create extensive underground cities using primitive tools, modern technology could theoretically support underground networks of unprecedented scale and sophistication. Tunneling machines, ventilation systems, and structural engineering capabilities existed that could support underground development rivaling or exceeding surface urban centers. The psychological barrier to underground living might explain why such development remained limited in civilian contexts. Humans generally preferred natural light, open spaces, and connection to surface environments. Underground spaces were associated with burial, confinement, and separation from the natural world. These preferences might not apply to activities that required secrecy, security, or isolation from surface conditions. Historical precedent existed for the concealment of extensive underground construction projects. The Manhattan Project built secret facilities across multiple states, employing tens of thousands of workers who remained unaware of their project's ultimate purpose. Similar levels of compartmentalization and secrecy could theoretically support underground construction on scales that would dwarf known examples. The modern emphasis on transparency and information sharing created expectations that major construction projects would be publicly documented and visible in satellite imagery. Underground development could circumvent both forms of oversight, creating infrastructure that left minimal surface signatures. Tunneling operations could be conducted from existing buildings or temporary structures that appeared innocuous from aerial observation. As urban populations continued to grow and surface space became increasingly valuable, the logic of underground development seemed likely to increase. Future cities might indeed expand downward as extensively as they had grown upward, creating multi-level urban environments that used three-dimensional space more efficiently. The subterranean labyrinths that ancient civilizations had created for survival might become templates for modern cities designed to accommodate growth, security, and resource efficiency in an increasingly complex world. Beneath the foundations of contemporary cities, vast networks of tunnels, chambers, and passages waited to be rediscovered, or perhaps continued to operate in secrecy, serving purposes that remained invisible to the surface world above. Deep in the heart of Greenland's ice sheet, where temperatures plunge to 40 degrees below zero and the wind carries secrets across ancient glaciers, something waits beneath the perpetual white. Satellite images from the late 1990s revealed at first a geometric anomaly breaking the natural chaos of ice and stone. What appeared on screen was unmistakably artificial. Rectangular structures arranged in precise formations, roads carved into permafrost, and facilities that seemed to emerge from the ice itself like sleeping giants. The coordinates led to Thule Air Base, officially established during the Cold War as America's northernmost military outpost. But the blurred sections on Google Maps tell a different story. Vast portions of the facility remain obscured, pixelated squares that hide whatever lies beneath. The official narrative speaks of radar installations and strategic defense systems, remnants of a time when the Arctic served as humanity's front line against nuclear annihilation. Yet local Inuit elders whisper of older mysteries. Their oral histories speak of strange lights dancing beneath the aurora, of metal structures that predate any known human presence in the region. Archaeological evidence suggests human habitation in Greenland, stretching back over 4,000 years long before Vikings ever set foot on its shores. What if the modern base was built not on empty ice, but atop something far more ancient? The ice cores tell their own story. Layers of frozen time reveal dramatic climate shifts that occurred thousands of years ago, periods when Greenland's coast supported forests and flowing rivers. During these warmer epochs, what civilizations might have flourished? What technologies might they have developed to survive in one of Earth's most unforgiving environments? Glaciologists studying the region have discovered something troubling. The ice above the blurred sections shows signs of artificial warming thermal, signatures that suggest active facilities far larger than official records indicate. Ground-penetrating radar reveals cavities and structures extending deep into the bedrock, networks of tunnels and chambers that dwarf the visible surface installations. Meanwhile, declassified documents from Project Iceworm: A Secret Cold, war initiative to construct nuclear missile sites within Greenland's ice reveal the scale of what humans can build in frozen wilderness. Miles of tunnels, entire underground cities designed to operate in perpetual winter. But Iceworm was abandoned in the 1960s, its tunnels sealed and forgotten. Or were they? The Inuit word sila refers to the spirit of weather and climate, an ancient force that shapes the land according to its own mysterious will. Perhaps what lies blurred beneath Greenland's ice serves a similar function, a guardian installation monitoring changes that occurred long before satellites ever watched our planet. The geometric precision of the hidden structures suggests technology, but technology serving what purpose? Climate research, as officially stated, or something more profound? Scientists studying ice sheet dynamics have noted anomalous readings near the Thule region gravitational variations that suggest dense materials buried deep within the ice. These readings don't match known geological formations. They hint at something metallic, something constructed, resting in chambers carved from living rock millennia ago. As climate change accelerates the melting of Greenland's ice sheet, these buried secrets may not remain hidden much longer. Already, archaeological sites thought lost forever have emerged from retreating glaciers' Viking settlements, Inuit hunting grounds, and stranger things that don't match any known cultural patterns. What will emerge when the ice above Thule finally surrenders to rising temperatures? The blurred pixels guard their secrets well, but ice remembers everything. As our planet turns through its daily rotation, satellites capture more than just the solid ground beneath our feet. Sometimes they glimpse something else, entirely phantom cities that appear in the most unexpected places. Urban layouts that shouldn't exist, architectural echoes that challenge our understanding of what maps can reveal. In China's remote western provinces, satellite technicians began noticing something peculiar during routine image processing. Perfect replicas of major cities appeared in desolate desert region street grids matching Beijing, building patterns identical to Shanghai, complete urban infrastructures placed where nothing should exist. These weren't military training grounds or movie sets. They were precise duplicates, captured in stunning detail before vanishing from subsequent satellite passes. The phenomenon wasn't limited to China. Across Africa's Sahara Desert, similar anomalies emerged on high-resolution imagery. Geometric patterns resembling metropolitan areas flickered in and out of digital existence, their street layouts matching real cities thousands of miles away. Cairo's distinctive street pattern appeared superimposed over empty dunes. Lagos's complex highway interchanges materialized above barren rock formations. Atmospheric physicists offer explanations rooted in light refraction and thermal layers. Superior mirages, they suggest, can project images across vast distances, bending light through temperature gradients in ways that fool both human eyes and digital sensors. The desert heat creates perfect conditions for such optical illusions, lifting distant cities into apparent existence where none should be. But the precision troubles researchers. These aren't shimmering, distorted mirages observed by desert travelers. They're pixel-perfect reproductions captured by sophisticated imaging systems designed to filter out atmospheric distortion. The cities appear complete in every detail: traffic patterns, building shadows, even vehicle movements that match the real locations hundreds of miles away. Computer scientists studying the phenomenon have discovered something more unsettling. The phantom cities don't always match their supposed originals exactly. Sometimes they show variations, different building heights, altered street configurations, urban layouts that resemble the source cities, but include architectural elements that don't exist in reality. It's as if the mirages are showing not just what is, but what could be. Quantum physicists have begun exploring whether these images might represent something beyond simple atmospheric refraction. The theory of parallel dimensions suggests that under specific conditions, images from alternate realities might bleed through into our observable universe. The desert's electromagnetic properties, combined with precise atmospheric conditions, could create windows into versions of Earth where different urban planning decisions created different cities. Ancient astronomers knew something about sky cities that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. Chinese texts from the Han Dynasty describe floating cities that appeared above mountain peaks during specific seasonal conditions. Native American traditions speak of cloud cities visible during spiritual ceremonies, urban visions that provided guidance for earthbound settlements. Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these phantom cities lies in their predictability. Researchers have identified patterns in their appearance-specific times of day, atmospheric conditions, and geographic locations where the phenomenon occurs most frequently. It's as if the Earth itself operates according to some schedule that occasionally allows these glimpses into hidden urban realities. The mapping companies have responded with algorithmic filters designed to identify and remove these anomalous images. Their software now automatically flags urban patterns appearing in impossible locations, scrubbing them from public view before they can generate conspiracy theories or public confusion. Yet the original data remains, archived in servers where researchers continue studying these digital ghosts. What if these phantom cities aren't illusions at all, but previews? Urban planners and futurists have long theorized about cities that adapt to climate change by becoming mobile, temporary, or even virtual. Perhaps what satellites are capturing are glimpses of humanity's urban future cities that exist in probability space, waiting for the right conditions to manifest in physical reality. The desert keeps its own time, revealing visions when the conditions align perfectly. Whether these cities in the sky represent past civilizations, parallel dimensions, or future possibilities, they remind us that our maps capture only one layer of a far more complex reality. Beyond the digital curtains of blurred pixels and algorithmic censorship lie stories older than satellites, tales whispered across generations about cities that exist beyond the reach of ordinary maps. These aren't modern secrets hidden by governments or corporations, but ancient mysteries that have danced at the edges of human consciousness since the first explorers ventured into unknown territories. Shangri-La emerges from Tibetan Buddhist tradition as more than mere fiction. The hidden valley, accessible only to those pure of heart and purpose, represents a perfect civilization preserved against the chaos of the outside world. British explorer Francis Young Husband, writing in the early 1900s after his expedition into Tibet, described valleys that seemed to exist outside normal geography places with a climate-defied altitude, where architecture followed principles unknown to conventional engineering. Modern satellite imagery of the Himalayas reveals curious anomalies that align eerily with these ancient accounts. Valleys that should be visible from space appear as uniform snow cover, their thermal signatures suggesting hidden geothermal activity that could, indeed, create temperate microclimates at impossible altitudes. The Chinese government's restrictions on certain satellite imagery of Tibet extend beyond military installations to include seemingly empty mountain regions where, according to official records, nothing of strategic value exists. Shambhala, the mystical kingdom described in Kalachakra texts, supposedly influences world events from its hidden location somewhere north of the Himalayas. The descriptions speak of a realm where advanced spiritual technology creates harmony between consciousness and environment, where the very landscape responds to the intentions of its inhabitants. Russian explorer Nicholas Roerich spent decades searching for Shambhala in the 1920s and 1930s, documenting strange electromagnetic anomalies and architectural ruins that didn't match any known civilization. These accounts find unexpected resonance in modern geophysical surveys of Central Asia. Ground-penetrating radar has identified vast underground chamber systems beneath, seemingly empty steppes and mountain ranges. The geometric precision of these subterranean networks suggests intentional construction rather than natural cave systems. Yet the regions remain classified, their coordinates absent from public mapping databases. El Dorado's transformation from a person to a place to a legend illustrates how truth evolves through retelling. The original El Dorado, the Golden One, was a Muisca chief who covered himself in gold dust during ritual ceremonies at Lake Guadalvita in Colombia. Spanish conquistadors, hearing tales of cities paved with gold, launched expeditions that fueled centuries of treasure hunting and geographic mythology. But recent archaeological discoveries suggest the conquistadors might have dismissed the wrong details. Advanced LiDAR surveys of Colombia as remote mountain regions reveal extensive urban settlements hidden beneath jungle, canopy complex civilizations that thrived long before European contact. These cities demonstrate sophisticated engineering, astronomical alignments, and metallurgical achievements that challenge assumptions about pre-Columbian technology. The Amazon basin holds particular fascination for researchers studying hidden civilizations. Satellite imagery consistently reveals geometric patterns beneath the forest canopy, straight lines stretching for miles, circular formations hundreds of meters across, rectangular clearings arranged in precise grids. Ground expeditions to these sites have uncovered evidence of massive earthworks, sophisticated water management systems, and urban planning that supported populations far larger than previously imagined. Indigenous knowledge keepers speak of cities that still exist within the forest, places where their ancestors retreated when European diseases and conquest made surface dwelling impossible. These aren't primitive settlements, according to the stories, but sophisticated underground networks, connected by tunnels and sustained by technologies that work in harmony with the forest ecosystem. The mythology of Lemuria and Mu, the lost continents of the Pacific, gained new relevance as oceanographic surveys revealed unexpected structures on the seafloor. Perfectly straight lines running for hundreds of miles across abyssal plains, rectangular formations that suggest artificial construction, step-like terraces that climb underwater mountain slopes in defiance of natural geology. James Churchward's writings about Mu, though dismissed by academic archaeology, describe technologies that sound remarkably similar to modern renewable energy systems, crystals that converted atmospheric energy into usable power, architecture that harmonized with natural electromagnetic fields, transportation systems that moved without fuel, or visible propulsion mechanisms. These ancient accounts share common themes that resonate with modern satellite mysteries. Hidden cities protected by natural barriers or advanced camouflage. Civilizations that develop technologies allowing them to exist outside conventional detection. Societies that chose concealment over conquest, preservation over expansion. Perhaps the most intriguing parallel lies in the descriptions of these mythical places as existing in parallel to ordinary reality, not entirely hidden, but visible only under specific conditions or to individuals with particular preparation. This echoes the modern phenomenon of satellite anomalies that appear and disappear, urban phantoms that exist in digital space or resist permanent documentation. As our mapping technologies grow more sophisticated, the boundaries between ancient mythology and digital mystery continue to blur. The stories our ancestors told about hidden cities may have been preparation for discoveries we're only beginning to make. In the vast server farms that process our planet's digital representation, algorithms make millions of decisions every second about what we see and what remains hidden. These aren't conscious choices made by human cartographers, but the calculated determinations of artificial intelligence systems trained to balance transparency with security, revelation with concealment. Google's mapping algorithms operate according to principles that extend far beyond simple geographic accuracy. Machine learning systems analyze each satellite image for sensitive content, applying filters that automatically blur military installations, government facilities, and locations deemed security risks. But the training data that teaches these systems what to hide comes from sources that remain classified, creating a feedback loop where artificial intelligence learns to obscure based on criteria we cannot examine. The European Space Agency's Sentinel satellite program generates terabytes of Earth imagery daily, processed through automated systems that flag anomalies and potential security concerns before human analysts ever see the raw data. These AI systems have developed pattern recognition capabilities that sometimes identify threats or sensitive sites based on subtle visual cues that escape human perception: geometric arrangements, material compositions, electromagnetic signatures that suggest purposes beyond ordinary civilian use. Commercial satellite companies like Maxar and Planet Labs operate under international agreements that require them to downgrade or restrict imagery of certain regions. But the implementation of these restrictions relies increasingly on algorithmic analysis rather than human review. The AI systems must distinguish between legitimate scientific research facilities and potential weapon sites, between archaeological excavations and military installations, between natural geological formations and artificial constructions. The complexity of these determinations has led to what researchers call algorithmic paranoia, a tendency for AI systems to err on the side of concealment when faced with ambiguous visual data. Rather than risk exposing genuinely sensitive information, the algorithms often blur entire regions based on statistical correlations that may have nothing to do with actual security concerns. Corporate policies add another layer of algorithmic filtering. Mapping companies must balance public access to information with the commercial interests of their clients, many of whom pay for location data while simultaneously requiring protection from competitors or unwanted attention. The algorithms that process this commercial data operate according to proprietary rules that treat business locations as potential trade secrets requiring digital camouflage. Privacy legislation in various countries has created a patchwork of algorithmic requirements that vary by jurisdiction, time of day, and the citizenship of the person accessing the maps. European privacy laws require automatic blurring of private residences, while Chinese regulations demand concealment of infrastructure that might reveal state capabilities. These requirements are implemented through geolocation algorithms that adjust the level of detail based on where the viewer appears to be located. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of algorithmic map curation lies in the unintended patterns that emerge from these automated systems. AI trained to identify and conceal military installations has begun flagging archaeological sites with similar geometric characteristics. Algorithms designed to protect privacy have started blurring natural formations that happen to match the statistical signatures of human settlements. Machine learning systems have developed what researchers term digital intuition, the ability to identify patterns that human programmers never explicitly taught them to recognize. Some mapping algorithms have begun automatically flagging regions based on subtle correlations in vegetation patterns, soil coloration, or electromagnetic signatures that suggest hidden underground structures or unusual geological activity. The feedback mechanisms built into these systems create evolutionary pressure for more sophisticated concealment. As AI becomes better at detecting hidden facilities, the methods for hiding them must become more advanced, leading to an arms race between revelation and concealment that plays out in the digital representation of our planet. Recent studies of satellite imagery have revealed that some algorithmic filtering appears to respond to temporal patterns rather than spatial ones. Certain locations remain visible during some months of the year, but become blurred during others, suggesting that the AI systems are monitoring not just what exists, but when it might be visible or active. The training datasets used to educate these mapping algorithms remain among the most closely guarded secrets in the technology industry. These databases contain millions of examples of what should be hidden and what can be revealed, creating a comprehensive catalog of global sensitivities that no human analyst could possibly memorize or apply consistently. Quantum computing promises to revolutionize these algorithmic processes by allowing simultaneous analysis of multiple interpretations of the same geographic data. Rather than making binary decisions about what to hide or reveal, quantum algorithms could maintain superposition states that adapt the level of detail based on real-time assessment of the viewer's clearance level, purpose, and potential security implications. The philosophical implications extend beyond technical capabilities. If our view of Earth is increasingly mediated by AI systems that operate according to undisclosed criteria, are we truly looking at our planet or at a carefully curated simulation designed to show us only what algorithms determine we should see? The answer may lie in understanding that modern cartography has become a collaborative art form between human curiosity and artificial intelligence, where the maps we see represent not objective reality, but the negotiated space between what exists and what we're permitted to know. In the austere landscape of Antarctica, where ice sheets stretch beyond the horizon and the silence carries for miles, a discovery emerged in 2016 that challenged everything scientists thought they knew about Earth's most isolated continent. A research team analyzing Google Earth imagery of the Ellsworth Mountains noticed something that shouldn't exist, a perfectly geometric structure rising from the ice. its triangular faces catching shadows in ways that suggested artificial construction rather than natural formation. The coordinates placed it in one of the most inaccessible regions of Antarctica, hundreds of miles from the nearest research station. At first glance, the formation appeared to be a Nunataka rocky peak protruding through the ice sheet. But the geometric precision was unsettling. The faces were too straight, the angles too perfect, the proportions too deliberate for natural geology. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a glaciologist studying ice sheet dynamics, was among the first to analyze the high-resolution imagery. The structure measured approximately 400 meters at its base, rising to a height that suggested a perfect pyramid shape. More importantly, thermal satellite data revealed that the formation generated heat, a consistent temperature signature that indicated either geothermal activity or something else entirely warming the structure from within. The discovery sparked intense debate within the scientific community. Geologists argued for natural explanations: unusual volcanic activity, unique rock formations shaped by millions of years of ice flow and wind erosion. But the mathematical precision of the angles defied conventional geological processes. Nature rarely creates such perfect geometry without assistance. Archaeological implications sent ripples through academic circles. If artificial, the pyramid would predate any known Antarctic human presence by tens of thousands of years. Antarctica's ice sheet formed roughly 34 million years ago, making human construction seemingly impossible. Yet the structure appeared to rest on bedrock rather than within the ice layers, suggesting extraordinary age or extraordinary preservation. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared in clear detail, the pyramid began to vanish from Google Earth. Updates to the mapping service gradually reduced the resolution of the area, first blurring the fine details, then pixelating entire sections, until finally the region appeared as uniform white space marked only by general topographical indicators. Official explanations cited improved imaging techniques that revealed the formation to be a natural rock outcropping enhanced by atmospheric distortion and digital compression artifacts. The thermal signatures were attributed to geothermal activity common throughout Antarctica's volcanic regions. The geometric appearance resulted from selective lighting and shadow patterns that created optical illusions in satellite imagery. But researchers who downloaded the original high-resolution images before they disappeared noticed troubling inconsistencies. The formation appeared in multiple satellite passes from different angles, maintaining its geometric properties across various lighting conditions. Ground-penetrating radar data from nearby research stations showed subsurface structures extending deep into the bedrock chambers and passages that followed the same angular geometry as the surface pyramid. Indigenous knowledge from the southernmost regions of South America includes references to southern lands of ice and stone, where ancient peoples built monuments to honor sky spirits. These oral histories, passed down through Fuegian and Patagonian cultures, describe expeditions to frozen territories where sacred structures marked astronomical alignments visible only from Antarctica as unique polar perspective. The timing of the pyramid's digital disappearance coincided with increased international tension over Antarctic territorial claims. Several nations had begun asserting rights to previously unclaimed regions, particularly areas showing signs of mineral wealth or strategic value. The Antarctic Treaty System, designed to preserve the continent for peaceful scientific research, faced challenges as climate change made resource extraction increasingly feasible. Satellite imagery analysis by independent researchers revealed that the pyramid's location sits directly above one of Antarctica's largest subglacial lakes. These hidden bodies of water, insulated from surface conditions by miles of ice, maintain liquid state through geothermal heating and pressure. Some contain microbial life that has evolved in isolation for millions of years. If the pyramid were artificial, it could represent humanity's first contact with a truly alien ecosystem. Recent advances in ice-penetrating radar have revealed an entire network of geometric structures throughout Antarctica, not just the famous pyramid, but dozens of angular formations buried beneath the ice sheet. Their distribution follows patterns that suggest intentional placement rather than random geological processes. Yet all public documentation of these discoveries remains classified under international scientific cooperation agreements. As climate change accelerates ice sheet melting, Antarctica's hidden secrets may not remain buried much longer. Already, archaeological sites have emerged from retreating glaciers' ancient forests, preserved in perfect condition, animal remains that predate known extinction events, and geological formations that suggest dramatic climate shifts occurred far more recently than previously believed. The blurred pixels that now obscure the pyramid's location represent more than digital censorship. They symbolize humanity's complex relationship with discovery, our simultaneous desire to know the truth and our fear of what that truth might reveal about our planet's hidden history. Above our planet's atmosphere, where satellites drift in their calculated orbits and space telescopes peer into the cosmic deep, another form of cartographic censorship unfolds. The maps of space, those digital atlases that catalog stars, galaxies, and the vast structures of the universe, contain their own blurred regions, pixelated squares that obscure whatever lies beyond our permitted understanding of the cosmos. NASA's public star catalogs, accessible through their online databases and astronomical mapping services, occasionally display curious anomalies. Black squares appear in stellar fields where bright objects should be visible, coordinates that correspond to known celestial phenomena yet show nothing but digital void. These aren't camera malfunctions or data corruption errors. They're deliberate redactions, applied with the same algorithmic precision used to blur terrestrial military installations. The Hubble Space Telescope, humanity's most famous orbital observatory, operates under protocols that automatically classify certain observations before human astronomers ever see the raw data. Machine learning algorithms analyze each image for anomalous object structures that don't match known categories of stars, planets, or galaxies. When these systems detect patterns that suggest artificial construction or inexplicable organization, the data enters restricted channels that few researchers can access. Radio astronomy presents even more intriguing possibilities for cosmic censorship. The vast arrays of radio telescopes that scan the heavens for patterns and signals process enormous amounts of data through automated systems designed to filter out terrestrial interference. But these same systems occasionally identify signals that don't originate from Earth, yet don't match natural astronomical phenomena. Such detections require immediate classification and often disappear from public databases within hours of discovery. The SETI Institute, dedicated to searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, operates under international agreements that require coordination with government agencies before announcing any significant discoveries. This creates a buffer zone between detection and public disclosure, allowing time for verification and assessment of potential implications. However, researchers have noted that some promising signal detections simply vanish from follow-up observation schedules without explanation. Commercial space imagery companies face similar restrictions to their terrestrial counterparts. Satellite constellations designed to monitor Earth from orbit also capture images of other satellites, space debris, and occasionally objects that don't appear in any official catalog of space assets. International space law requires these companies to blur or omit images that might reveal classified space operations or technologies. But the most fascinating aspect of cosmic cartography lies in the patterns that emerge when analyzing what gets censored. Astronomical databases show curious gaps in coverage that align with specific regions of space areas where multiple telescopes seem to avoid pointing, where star catalogs show unusual density variations, where deep space surveys consistently report equipment malfunctions or scheduling conflicts. The Kepler Space Telescope, before its mission ended, discovered thousands of exoplanets, by detecting the tiny dimming effects as planets passed in front of their host stars. But among these discoveries were objects that caused dimming patterns unlike any known planetary configuration: irregular, structured, massive objects that blocked starlight in ways suggesting artificial construction rather than natural celestial mechanics. Tabby's star, officially known as KIC 8,462,852, became famous for its bizarre dimming behavior that defied conventional astronomical explanation. The star's light output would decrease by up to 20% in irregular patterns that suggested massive objects of unknown origin orbiting around it. While various natural theories have been proposed, the raw data remains partially classified, and follow-up observations have been limited by telescope scheduling restrictions. Deep space surveys regularly detect what astronomers term fast radio bursts brief, intense signals that appear to originate from distant galaxies. The patterns of these bursts sometimes suggest repetition and structure that could indicate artificial origin, but the protocols for studying them involve security clearances and international coordination that delays or prevents detailed analysis of the most intriguing cases. The James Webb Space Telescope, with its unprecedented ability to see deeper into space than ever before, operates under enhanced security protocols that automatically classify observations based on their potential implications. Images that show unexpected structure in distant galaxies, geometric patterns in stellar formations, or objects that appear to violate known physical laws enter restricted databases before astronomical communities can analyze them. Parallels between terrestrial and cosmic censorship suggest systematic approaches to controlling information that could challenge existing paradigms. Just as Google Maps blurs military installations to protect national security, space agencies may blur astronomical observations to protect humanity from knowledge we're not prepared to handle, or to protect classified space operations from foreign observation. The philosophical implications extend beyond mere security concerns. If our view of the universe is increasingly filtered through algorithmic systems that determine what we should see based on undisclosed criteria, how can we claim to understand our cosmic position? The stars that guide our navigation and inspire our exploration may represent only the approved portions of a far more complex reality. Recent developments in private space exploration have begun to challenge these information restrictions. Companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin operate their own observation systems, and astronomical hobbyists with sophisticated equipment can now detect phenomena that previously required government-level resources. This democratization of space observation may eventually make cosmic censorship as difficult to maintain as terrestrial secrecy. The night sky that has inspired human civilization for millennia may contain more mysteries than we realize, not because the cosmos is empty, but because we've been looking at carefully edited versions of its true complexity. Beneath the ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica, under the canopies of the Amazon and Congo basins within the unexplored depths of ocean trenches, and the unmapped caverns of limestone karst, entire civilizations might exist in a state of deliberate invisibility. The technology to remain hidden from satellites and survey teams may not be as futuristic as we imagine. It might be as ancient as the first humans who learned to build in harmony with natural camouflage. The mathematics of concealment reveal surprising truths about how easily large populations could evade modern detection. Earth's surface area spans over 510 million square kilometers, but current satellite coverage provides detailed monitoring of less than 30% of that area on any given day. Vast regions experience satellite observation only monthly, seasonally, or during specific weather conditions that often obscure ground details. Underground construction offers even greater possibilities for concealment. The limestone caves of Southeast Asia extend for thousands of miles through mountain ranges, creating natural infrastructure that could support substantial populations without any surface signature. The Sea Chi tunnels of Vietnam demonstrated how extensive subterranean networks could hide entire military operations from aerial detection. And that system covered only a few hundred square kilometers. Archaeological evidence suggests that ancient civilizations possessed sophisticated understanding of camouflage and concealment. The cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde became invisible from ground level by matching their construction materials to natural rock formations. Entire cities like Petra were carved directly into mountainsides, creating urban centers that appeared as natural geology from any distance. The Amazon basin continues to reveal evidence of civilizations far more advanced than previously recognized. LiDAR surveys have penetrated jungle canopy to reveal geometric earthworks spanning thousands of square kilometers roads, canals, and urban centers that supported populations numbering in the millions. These civilizations developed agricultural and architectural techniques that worked with the forest ecosystem rather than replacing it, making their settlements nearly impossible to detect without sophisticated ground-penetrating technology. Indigenous knowledge keepers speak of relatives who chose concealment over contact when European diseases and conquest made surface life untenable. These groups didn't disappear, they adapted, developing technologies that allowed sustainable existence in environments considered uninhabitable by conventional standards. Oral traditions describe communities that learned to live beneath forest floors, in cave systems, and in other hidden spaces where they could maintain their cultures without interference. The Sahara Desert's expansion over the past several thousand years may have driven entire civilizations underground. Recent discoveries of vast aquifer systems beneath the desert suggest that substantial populations could survive using ancient hydrological knowledge. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed networks of tunnels and chambers that extend across hundreds of miles, following underground water sources with precision that indicates long-term planning and engineering expertise. Polar regions offer unique opportunities for concealment due to their extreme conditions and limited monitoring. The Inuit developed technologies allowing survival in environments that defeat modern equipment, living in structures that became invisible under snow cover within hours of construction. If these techniques were scaled up and combined with geothermal resources, substantial populations could exist beneath ice sheets without leaving detectable thermal signatures. Ocean depths provide the ultimate concealment, with less than 5% of the seafloor mapped in detail. Underwater civilizations could exist around hydrothermal vents, which provide both energy and warmth while creating natural barriers to detection. The abyssal plains contain structures that appear artificial straight lines extending for miles, geometric formations that suggest construction rather than geological processes. Mountain ranges worldwide contain cave systems that remain unmapped and unexplored. The Himalayas, Andes, and Rocky Mountains include cavern networks that could extend for thousands of miles through the mountain cores. These natural spaces could support civilizations that developed technologies for underground agriculture, geothermal energy use, and air circulation systems that leave no surface signature. Advanced camouflage techniques might make surface civilizations invisible to satellite detection. Materials that match local electromagnetic signatures, construction methods that mimic natural geological processes, and urban planning that follows organic rather than geometric patterns could create cities that appear as wilderness from orbital observation. The temporal aspect of concealment adds another dimension to these possibilities. Civilizations that operate on different schedules from modern society active during seasons, weather conditions, or times of day when satellite coverage is minimal could maintain substantial infrastructure while remaining largely invisible to systematic monitoring. Climate change may soon reveal what has remained hidden for millennia. As ice sheets melt, forests burn, and sea levels rise, archaeological sites and possibly active communities that have existed in concealment for generations may find their cover disappearing. The next decade may bring discoveries that fundamentally challenge our understanding of human civilization and its true distribution across the planet. The echoes of lost civilizations may not be echoes at all, but the whispered communications of societies that chose invisibility over exposure, preservation over expansion, harmony with natural systems over domination of them. They might be watching us as closely as we search for them, waiting to see whether humanity will develop the wisdom necessary to join a hidden community of civilizations that learned long ago how to live without destroying their environment. In laboratories around the world, scientists are developing technologies that will make current satellite systems seem as primitive as medieval maps. Quantum sensors capable of detecting gravitational anomalies, hyperspectral cameras that see through camouflage, and AI systems that can identify artificial structures by their mathematical signatures rather than visual appearance. The future of exploration promises to reveal secrets that have remained hidden for millennia. Quantum gravity sensors, already in prototype development, can detect mass variations beneath the Earth's surface with unprecedented precision. These devices measure tiny changes in gravitational fields that indicate buried structures, underground chambers, or materials with density different from surrounding geology. Unlike conventional ground-penetrating radar, quantum sensors work at any depth and can distinguish between natural cavities and artificial construction based on geometric patterns in gravitational data. Private satellite constellations are beginning to challenge government monopolies on high-resolution Earth imagery. Companies like Planet Labs deploy hundreds of small satellites that provide daily coverage of the entire planet, while Maxar and others offer imagery with resolution fine enough to identify individual vehicles. As these commercial systems multiply and improve, maintaining information monopolies becomes increasingly difficult. Hyperspectral imaging technology can identify materials based on their unique electromagnetic signatures, seeing through camouflage that fools conventional cameras. Military researchers have developed systems that distinguish between natural vegetation and artificial materials designed to mimic plant life. Applied to archaeological research, these technologies could identify buried cities by detecting trace minerals, construction materials, or soil chemistry changes that indicate long-term human habitation. Artificial intelligence systems trained on geological and archaeological databases can now identify potential excavation sites. By analyzing subtle patterns in satellite imagery, variations in vegetation color, soil drainage patterns, or microtopography that suggest buried structures. These AI systems process imagery faster than human researchers and can detect patterns too subtle for conventional analysis. Underground exploration technologies are approaching capabilities that seemed impossible just decades ago. Robotic systems can navigate complex cave networks, mapping three-dimensional structures while analyzing air composition, temperature variations, and acoustic properties that indicate the presence of larger chambers or artificial modifications. Some prototypes use swarm robotics, deploying hundreds of small sensors that coordinate to map vast underground networks simultaneously. Ocean exploration remains the final frontier for hidden civilizations, but emerging technologies promise to change that rapidly. Autonomous underwater vehicles can now operate at any depth for months at a time, using advanced sonar systems to map seafloor structures with resolution comparable to aerial photography. Deep-sea mining companies have developed sensors that can distinguish between geological formations and artificial structures, technologies that could reveal underwater cities or installations. Blockchain-based information sharing systems may eventually make censorship of discovery data impossible. Researchers could publish findings on distributed networks that no single government or corporation could control, creating permanent records of discoveries that resist suppression or modification. These systems would allow global collaboration on sensitive discoveries, while preventing information from disappearing into classified databases. Space-based archaeology is emerging as a new discipline, using orbital sensors to map Earth's surface for signs of ancient civilizations. The European Space Agency's Sentinel satellites already provide data that archaeologists use to identify potential excavation sites. and NASA has begun dedicating telescope time to archaeological surveys. As these capabilities improve, we may discover that human civilization has deeper roots and wider distribution than conventional history suggests. Climate change, while devastating in many ways, may accelerate discovery by exposing sites that have remained hidden under ice, vegetation, or changed sea levels. Retreating glaciers have already revealed perfectly preserved archaeological sites, and rising ocean temperatures are exposing underwater structures that were previously too deep for detailed study. Citizen science initiatives are democratizing exploration by giving researchers worldwide access to high-resolution imagery and analysis tools. Volunteers can now participate in archaeological surveys, environmental monitoring, and anomaly detection using the same satellite data that was previously restricted to government agencies. This distributed approach makes systematic censorship far more difficult to maintain. The most intriguing possibility lies in technologies that could detect civilizations by their conscious attempts to remain hidden. Advanced pattern recognition systems might identify the very absence of expected signatures regions where human activity should be visible, but isn't, areas where natural processes have been too perfectly maintained, or locations where statistical analysis suggests active concealment efforts. However, the same technologies that promise to reveal hidden civilizations also enable more sophisticated concealment. Metamaterials that bend electromagnetic radiation could make structures invisible to satellite observation, while AI systems could generate perfect camouflage that adapts in real time to changing observation conditions. The race between revelation and concealment continues to accelerate, driven by technologies that grow more powerful each year. Whether the next decade brings disclosure of hidden civilizations or the perfection of invisibility technologies may depend on which research programs receive funding and political support. Perhaps most importantly, these advancing technologies raise philosophical questions about whether discovery is always beneficial. Some hidden civilizations may have chosen concealment for excellent reasons, protecting knowledge or ways of life that could be damaged by exposure to modern industrial society. The future of discovery must include wisdom about when to reveal and when to protect the mysteries we find. The tools to see everything are almost within our grasp. The wisdom to use them responsibly remains humanity's greatest challenge. In the basement archives of the Istanbul Archaeological Museum, catalogued under a reference number that appears nowhere in the official database, lies a map that predates the supposed discovery of Antarctica by more than 3 centuries. The Piri Reis map, drawn by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer in 1513, shows the coastline of a continent that European explorers wouldn't encounter until 1820. Dr. Sarah Chun, a paleoclimatologist studying ancient navigation techniques, stumbled upon the map during research into historical climate data preserved in maritime records. The detail that stopped her cold wasn't the presence of Antarctica itself. An anomaly had been noted by historians for decades, but the accuracy of the continental outline beneath what should have been permanent ice coverage. The map depicts Antarctica's actual bedrock coastline, the geological foundation that lies buried under miles of ice sheet accumulation. Modern satellite surveys using ice-penetrating radar have confirmed that Piri Reis somehow knew the true shape of the continent, as it existed before glaciation, or as it might exist if the ice ever melted completely. Carbon dating of the parchment and analysis of the ink compositions confirmed the map's 16th century origin. The cartographic techniques matched other works from Piri Reis's documented career, and historical records showed the map had been gifted to Sultan Selim I in 1517. Yet the geographic information it contained wouldn't become available to modern cartographers until satellite technology could see through Antarctic ice sheets in the late 20th century. Piri Reis left notes describing his sources' ancient maps from the Library of Alexandria, charts captured from Spanish vessels, and most intriguingly, maps that he claimed dated to the time of Alexander the Great. These source materials, if they existed, suggested a continuity of geographic knowledge stretching back thousands of years, preserved through civilizations that supposedly lacked the technology for Antarctic exploration. The parallels to modern satellite mysteries are unmistakable. Just as Google Maps selectively blurs contemporary installations and discoveries, ancient cartographic traditions may have preserved knowledge of geographic features while concealing the methods by which that knowledge was obtained. The map represents information that should have been impossible for its creator to possess, yet exists in authenticated form. Ottoman naval archives contain references to other impossible maps charts showing Pacific islands that European navigators would encounter for centuries. Detailed coastlines of regions supposedly unknown to medieval Islamic civilization, and navigation guides for ocean routes that required technologies not officially invented until the age of exploration. The mathematical precision of the Piri-Reis map as projections suggests the use of spherical trigonometry and coordinate systems that weren't supposed to exist in 1513. The map uses projection, techniques that account for Earth's curvature in ways that require understanding of the planet as a sphere rather than the flat Earth cosmology prevalent in medieval European thought. Modern attempts to recreate the map using 16th century tools and knowledge have failed to achieve the same level of accuracy. Computer analysis reveals that the geographic coordinates align with satellite data to within margins of error that should have been impossible given the supposed limitations of Renaissance navigation technology. The Antarctic coastline isn't the map's only anomaly. It includes detailed depictions of river systems in South America that were unofficially mapped. Until the 19th century shows Caribbean islands in positions that match modern charts rather than the distorted representations common in early colonial maps, and indicates magnetic declination variations that require sophisticated understanding of Earth's magnetic field. Perhaps most mysteriously, the map includes notations in Arabic describing climate patterns and seasonal variations that match modern meteorological data for regions the Ottoman Empire never officially visited. These annotations suggest detailed knowledge of global weather systems and their effects on navigation information that required centuries of systematic observation to accumulate. The Turkish government has restricted access to the original map since the 1970s, citing preservation concerns. Digital copies available to researchers have been processed through enhancement software that may have altered some details, making independent analysis of the original markings difficult. The restriction coincides with increased international interest in Antarctic resources and territorial claims. Similar impossible maps exist in archives around the world, their existence documented, but their contents often classified or restricted. The Orontius Phineas map of 1531 shows Antarctica in even greater detail, including mountain ranges and rivers that match the subglacial topography revealed by modern ice-penetrating surveys. Chinese archives contain maps from the Ming Dynasty showing detailed Pacific navigation routes that supposedly weren't discovered by Asian mariners until much later periods. Indigenous peoples of the Americas preserve geographic information on bark maps and stone carvings that demonstrate knowledge of continental features extending far beyond their supposed territorial ranges. The pattern suggests that human civilization has experienced multiple cycles of geographic knowledge periods when advanced navigation and mapping capabilities developed, followed by periods when that knowledge was lost, hidden, or preserved only in fragments. The blurred regions on modern maps may represent continuation of ancient traditions that protected sensitive geographic information from public access. As climate change melts Antarctic ice, revealing the actual bedrock coastline depicted in the Piri-Reis map, we may discover that the impossible accuracy wasn't impossible at all, just knowledge from a time when Antarctica was accessible to human exploration, preserved through cartographic traditions that maintained their secrets across centuries of official historical forgetting. As our journey through the blurred zones and pixelated mysteries draws toward its conclusion, A deeper question emerges from the silence that surrounds these hidden places. Why do certain cities, installations, and civilizations choose invisibility over recognition? What drives the decision to remain concealed when discovery might bring resources, protection, or simply the acknowledgement of existence? The psychology of concealment runs deeper than mere security concerns. Throughout human history, communities have chosen isolation when they possess knowledge, technologies, or ways of life that they believe the outside world wasn't ready to understand or appreciate. The monasteries of medieval Europe preserved ancient texts during dark ages, while indigenous cultures worldwide developed strategies for protecting sacred sites from exploitation or desecration. Modern hidden cities may operate according to similar principles, not hiding from threats, but protecting themselves and their discoveries from a world they perceive as unready for what they've learned. If breakthrough technologies exist in these concealed locations, their inhabitants might view public revelation as premature, potentially dangerous, or simply wasteful given humanity's current priorities and conflicts. The temporal dimension of concealment suggests that some hidden cities might be waiting for specific conditions before revealing themselves. Climate change, technological development, or shifts in global consciousness could serve as triggers for disclosure. The silence might represent patience rather than fear communities that operate on longer timescales than conventional society. Economic factors play crucial roles in maintaining concealment. Hidden cities that have achieved sustainable, self-sufficient economies might view exposure to global markets as more threat than opportunity. Participation in conventional commerce requires compromises in environmental regulations, labor laws, taxation systems that could disrupt carefully balanced social and ecological systems. The Antarctic research stations that remain partially hidden from satellite view might exemplify this principle. Scientists working in extreme isolation often develop social structures and research methodologies that would and survive transplantation to conventional academic institutions. The concealment protects not just sensitive research, but alternative ways of organizing human society around scientific discovery rather than commercial profit. Digital concealment serves different purposes than physical hiding. The algorithmic filters that blur satellite imagery create buffer zones where sensitive activities can occur without constant public scrutiny. This digital privacy might be essential for research programs that require decades to produce results, protecting long-term projects from political changes or funding disruptions that could terminate promising work. The silence of hidden cities also reflects deeper philosophical positions about humanity's relationship with technology and environment. Communities that have achieved harmony with natural systems might view exposure to industrial civilization as existential threat. Their concealment represents not withdrawal from progress, but protection of alternative definitions of what progress means. Indigenous knowledge traditions often describe hidden cities as existing in parallel to ordinary reality, accessible to those who understand proper protocols, invisible to those who lack appropriate preparation or intentions. This suggests that some concealment might be perceptual rather than physical, requiring changes in consciousness rather than geographic location to access hidden communities. The mathematical elegance of certain concealment strategies hints at sophisticated understanding of human psychology and technological limitations. Hidden cities that position themselves at the edges of satellite coverage, in regions where natural phenomena create detection difficulties, or in locations that exploit weaknesses in current mapping algorithms, demonstrate deep knowledge of the systems they are evading. Corporate hidden cities, the research facilities and development centers that major technology companies blur from public view, represent attempts to protect intellectual property and strategic planning from competitors. But they also reflect corporate cultures that have grown uncomfortable with public scrutiny of their activities and priorities. The concealment protects not just trade secrets, but corporate values that might not withstand public examination. Military installations that remain hidden decades after the conflicts they were designed For-ended suggest institutional momentum toward secrecy that persists beyond rational justification. Some hidden military cities might continue operating simply because the bureaucratic mechanisms for disclosure have been lost or forgotten, leaving communities in indefinite isolation. The most profound silence might come from hidden cities that have solved fundamental problems: energy production, food security, social organization, environmental restoration, and chosen not to share their solutions immediately. If such communities exist, their silence might represent assessment periods where they evaluate whether human civilization has developed sufficient wisdom to use their innovations constructively. Climate change may break many of these silences involuntarily. Hidden cities positioned in polar regions, desert margins, or coastal areas face exposure as environmental conditions shift beyond their concealment strategies' limits. The next decades may bring revelations driven not by choice, but by necessity, as carefully maintained camouflage fail under changing physical conditions. The ethics of revealing hidden cities creates complex dilemmas for researchers who discover evidence of concealed communities. Exposure could bring benefits: medical knowledge, technological innovations, alternative social models, but might also destroy whatever conditions made those communities worth discovering in the first place. Perhaps the silence of hidden cities represents humanity's unconscious wisdom, an instinct for preserving alternatives, maintaining diversity, and keeping options open for futures we cannot yet imagine. Their concealment might be a gift to future generations, ensuring that solutions to problems we haven't yet recognized will be available when needed. From our orbital perspective, Earth appears as a blue marble suspended in cosmic darkness, its surface patterns clearly visible to any observer with sufficient distance and clarity of sight. But as our journey through the hidden places has revealed, proximity brings not greater understanding, but greater mystery. The closer we look, the more we discover that our planet guards its secrets with algorithmic precision and ancient wisdom. The blurred zones and pixelated squares that scatter across our digital maps represent more than technological limitations or security concerns. They mark the boundaries between knowledge and mystery, between what we've chosen to reveal and what we've decided to protect. Each obscured region tells a story about human priorities, about what we value enough to hide and what we consider safe enough to share. We live on a planet where entire civilizations might exist in parallel to our mapped reality, where technologies we can barely imagine might operate in carefully concealed facilities, where wisdom accumulated over millennia might be preserved in communities that chose invisibility over recognition. The hidden cities are not absences on our maps, but presences that have learned to exist outside our conventional understanding of space and disclosure. The algorithms that curate our view of Earth operate according to logic that extends beyond simple geographic accuracy. They embody decisions about what constitutes appropriate knowledge, about what discoveries require preparation or protection, about what revelations might prove more dangerous than beneficial. These automated systems have become guardians of mysteries we might not be ready to solve. Yet climate change, advancing technology, and the democratization of exploration tools continue to erode the boundaries between hidden and revealed. The ice sheets that conceal ancient structures are melting, the forests that camouflage lost cities are burning, the ocean levels that hide underwater installations are rising. The next century may bring revelations that fundamentally alter our understanding of human civilization and its true distribution across the planet. The philosophical implications of these hidden geographies extend beyond mere curiosity about secret places. They challenge our assumptions about progress, about the relationship between knowledge and wisdom, about whether complete disclosure always serves beneficial purposes. The hidden cities might represent humanity's unconscious understanding that some discoveries require patience, some knowledge needs protection, and some mysteries deserve preservation. As we develop technologies capable of revealing everything, we simultaneously develop systems for concealing what we found. This paradox suggests that transparency and privacy, revelation and concealment, exist in dynamic balance rather than simple opposition. The hidden cities are not obstacles to understanding, but expressions of wisdom about when understanding should wait for better timing or preparation. The maps we use to navigate our world have become collaborative artworks between human curiosity and artificial intelligence, between individual desire for knowledge and collective decisions about what knowledge should remain restricted. They show us not objective reality, but negotiated reality, the space between what exists and what we've agreed to acknowledge exists. Perhaps the most profound discovery in our exploration of hidden places is the recognition that mystery itself serves essential functions. The unknown regions on our maps provide space for imagination, for possibility, for alternatives to current ways of organizing human society. They preserve options for futures we cannot yet envision. The satellites that watch our planet capture more than geographic data. They document the evolution of human consciousness, recording our changing relationships with secrecy and disclosure, with exploration and preservation, with the desire to know everything and the wisdom to protect what we discover. As individual explorers in an age of algorithmic cartography, we face choices about how to respond to the hidden zones we encounter. Do we work to expose what lies concealed, or do we learn to appreciate the value of maintained mystery? Do we demand complete transparency, or do we develop respect for communities and discoveries that choose concealment for reasons we might not fully understand? The hidden cities will not remain hidden forever. Climate change, technological advancement, and human curiosity continue to erode the boundaries between known and unknown. But as we approach these revelations, we might benefit from considering not just what we'll discover, but what we'll lose when the last mysteries disappear from our maps. The Earth from space appears simple and comprehensible, its features clearly defined against the darkness of space. But the view from orbit represents distance, not clarity. The closer we look, the more we realize that our planet operates according to principles of concealment and revelation that reflect deep wisdom about the relationship between knowledge and responsibility. In the end, the blurred zones on our maps might represent not limitations of technology or failures of disclosure, but success in maintaining balance between curiosity and wisdom, between the human desire to know everything and the equally human understanding that some knowledge requires careful guardianship. The hidden cities wait in their careful concealment, neither fully secret nor entirely revealed, existing in the spaces between certainty and mystery, where the most important discoveries often occur. They remind us that in a world increasingly mapped and monitored, the preservation of unknown territories might be among our most valuable achievements. If you found yourself drawn into this exploration of our planet's hidden geographies, consider subscribing for future journeys into the mysteries that remain just beyond the edges of our current understanding. The Earth holds more secrets than any of us can explore in a single lifetime, but each discovery opens pathways toward others that wait in the careful silence of concealed places. The maps will continue to evolve, the algorithms will grow more sophisticated, and the balance between revelation and concealment will shift with changing technologies and priorities. But as long as human consciousness includes both the desire to know and the wisdom to protect what we discover, there will always be hidden cities waiting just beyond the pixels of our current understanding. In the quiet hours before dawn, when satellite arrays continue their endless dance around our planet, capturing images of a world that sleeps beneath their electronic gaze, the true nature of our digital age reveals itself. We have achieved the ancient dream of godlike perspective, the ability to see our entire world from above, to traverse continents with the click of a mouse, to explore the most remote corners of Earth without leaving our homes. Yet this omniscience has revealed its own limitations. The very technology that promised to eliminate mystery from geography has created new forms of mystery, digital shadows that fall across landscapes, both ancient and modern. In our quest to map everything, we have discovered how much remains unmappable, how many places exist in the spaces between pixels, in the gaps between satellite passes, in the careful omissions of digital cartographers. The hidden cities that Google Maps won't show us exist not merely as geographical locations, but as reminders of the boundaries that persist, even in our age of unprecedented information access. They represent the enduring human capacity to maintain secrets, to preserve mystery, and to ensure that some places remain beyond the reach of casual observation. Whether they conceal military installations, archaeological wonders, or something else entirely, these hidden places serve a function that transcends their specific contents. Consider what we have learned about the nature of knowledge itself through this exploration of digital cartography as blind spots. The act of hiding information has often proven as revealing as the information that remains visible. The patterns of concealment, the geographical distribution of censored locations, and the consistency of certain omissions across multiple mapping platforms tell stories about power, security, and the priorities of institutions that control access to satellite imagery. The phantom islands that appear and vanish from digital maps remind us that the relationship between representation and reality remains complex even in our technological age. If Sandy Island could exist in cartographic form for over a century without existing in physical space, how many other aspects of our mapped world might reflect human assumptions rather than verifiable truth? The boundary between description and creation proves more fluid than traditional geography acknowledges. Beneath the forest canopies, where LiDAR has revealed lost civilizations, beneath the ocean floors, where sonar has detected geometric anomalies, beneath the desert sands, where thermal imaging has glimpsed buried structures, and beneath the urban streets, where ancient tunnels still carry the echoes of all forgotten purposes, mysteries persist that our technology can detect but not fully resolve. The underground worlds that ancient peoples carved from living rock, the subterranean networks that modern cities conceal beneath their foundations, and the hidden facilities that governments maintain in strategic secrecy all suggest that Earth retains a capacity for concealment that satellite surveillance cannot entirely overcome. The vertical dimension of geography, the spaces above and below the surface that are mapping platforms, document remains incompletely explored and imperfectly understood. Perhaps the most profound revelation from this journey through hidden geography is that mystery itself serves essential functions in human psychology and social organization. The knowledge that vast areas of our planet remain concealed from casual observation maintains a sense of wonder about the world we inhabit. The possibility that our maps might be incomplete preserves space for discovery, exploration, and surprise in an age that sometimes seems to have documented everything worth knowing. The digital dragons that guard these hidden territories, the algorithmic sensors, the pixelated barriers, and the systematic omissions that protect certain coordinates from public scrutiny continue an ancient tradition of marking boundaries between the known and unknown. They remind us that complete transparency might not be desirable, that some places benefit from remaining hidden, and that the democratization of geographical information must be balanced against other values and priorities. As our exploration of these hidden places draws to a close, we are left not with definitive answers, but with enhanced appreciation for the questions that remain unanswered. Somewhere in the blurred zones that satellite sensors protect, in the phantom coordinates that exist only in digital form, and in the underground networks that parallel our surface world, stories wait to be discovered by future generations with different tools, different priorities, and different relationships to the boundaries between public and private knowledge. The Earth continues to turn beneath its constellation of surveillance satellites, and somewhere in the spaces that remain hidden from their electronic gaze, new mysteries are being born, while ancient secrets continue their patient wait for the day when concealment might no longer be necessary or possible. If this journey through the geography of the invisible has sparked your own curiosity about the hidden spaces that surround us, consider exploring further the maps that lie beneath maps, the territories that exist between the documented and the unknown. and the possibility that our planet still holds surprises for those willing to look beyond the boundaries of conventional visibility. The hidden cities that Google Maps won't show us remain hidden still, guardians of mysteries that may be more valuable for remaining mysterious than they would be if fully revealed to the light of digital scrutiny.